Division titles, 88, 89, 90, 92. I think most managers will say to win a division is tougher and more satisfying than the postseason play. You get a hot pitcher, you can win postseason play, but to win a division takes a lot of elements of your team, including outstanding managing, and the A's got that this year from Tony La Russa.
And La Russa told us yesterday in his office before last night's game that considering the way we came back after those injuries and after he had to plug so many holes, he says if we had not won after all that, it would have been my most disappointing year.
And that's what I think they have going for them in the playoffs, whether it's against Toronto or Milwaukee, is they have fought back. There's something about teams that say we refuse to lose. We will not lose. And that man in the middle of your picture, Carney Lansford, is a key player that says that. I will not allow this team to lose. And that might be a big factor for Oakland going into postseason play.
And the A's take the field. Mike Moore going for his 17th victory of the year, the biggest winner on the A's staff, 16-12 on the season, making his 36th start of the season.
16 wins, and that is about what he's averaged in his 3 years with the Oakland A's. He is one of the rare pitchers that can strike a hitter out with a fastball, a forkball, or a slider. 3 outstanding pitches. You see his walk total. That's probably what holds him back a little. Does not challenge hitters as much as Dave Duncan would like to see him, the A's pitching coach. Let's take a quick look at the Oakland A's. We mentioned they'll have about their regular lineup out there today. Rickey Henderson back for the first time in a couple of weeks. Dave Henderson testing his bad leg, see if he'll be available for postseason play, and then Ruben Sierra in right. Around the infield, Carney Lansford. At third base, Walt Weiss is the shortstop, Mike Bordick at second, and Mark McGuire, the first baseman. So the infield is intact, and for the first time in a week, they'll get to look at Terry Steinbach, and Tony La Russa will be watching him closely, especially when he runs. Take no chances with that abdominal strain, make sure he's healthy.
The Brewers have won 7 of the 10 games against the A's this season. In fact, they have won the last 6 against Oakland. May give you an idea who privately the A's would rather face in the League Championship Series, because the Brewers are the only team who have won a season series against Tony La Russa's team this year.
Of course, the psychology of that is Milwaukee is beating them right now, and the A's have had the division pretty well in hand. But I think in postseason play, Milwaukee, if they were to pull off a miracle, would say, wow, we're happy to be here. And they have a lot of success against Oakland, but I don't think they would have that same success in the playoffs. So they might say they'd rather play Toronto, but Toronto's on a bit of a mission, and I think they will pose a little tougher opponent for them than Milwaukee.
Well, they certainly have been there more. They've been there many times, knocking on the door, trying to get into the World Series for the first time. They're the dimensions here at the Coliseum. And we're set to go here in Oakland. Pat Listach will lead off for the Brewers. Rookie of the Year candidate is hitting .292. Switch hitter hitting .273 as a left-handed batter. Second in the American League in stolen bases. Lansford will play in on the grass at third, looking for the possible bunt. The outfield shaded around to the left and not deep. And the first pitch of the ball game to Pat Listach, ball 1 outside. The A's have dropped 8 of their last 10 games, and that's not critical since they've had this wrapped up for quite a while. But they like to get a little momentum going into Wednesday night's first game. Squares to bunt and takes ball 2.
Had a rock concert here about a week ago, Dick, and therefore the outfield. Don't know if you can distinguish it in your picture there, but it's a little chopped up, and the ball taking some funny hops, and with Milwaukee's speed, that can be a factor today.
2 balls and a strike, and Listach questions Derwood Merrill on that high strike. 2-1 in the count to Pat Listach, who was penciled in for minor league duty this year. Bill Spires got hurt, and here he is having a terrific first year. Slaps it foul out of play, and the count is even. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Talking to Willie Wilson, who's not in the lineup today, about that outfield, he says not only can the ball take, a sudden move, but you can skid when you take off, which makes the catch by Robin Yount even more remarkable.
You have to be just a little more tentative out there with these conditions.
2 balls and 2 strikes, and Lansford is backed up at third with 2 strikes. And Listach stays alive. How many did he foul off last week. Some 17 pitches
17
against Ron Darling.
That center field camera shot points up the home plate umpire, the positioning of Durwood Merrill. That's rather unusual. A lot of umpires will peek over one shoulder or the other of the catcher. Watch Durwood. He assumes that square position, puts his hands out as if to frame the strike zone. Of course, a lot of pitchers wish the strike zone were as wide as his hands are apart.
Or as his shoulders. 2-2 pitch on the outside corner. So Listach goes down, has a few words for Durwood Merrill, and there's one gone in the first.
Said Mike Moore could strike a hitter out with any of 3 pitches. Well, the first one is with the forkball. You can see the down break on the end of that. Almost see the split in the fingers. A little down and away, which the forkball will generally do, right-hand pitcher to left-hand hitter.
I want to talk about a quiet contributor, and a fine contributor to the Brewers has been Darryl Hamilton. .298 is his batting average, and a good number 2 hitter. Takes a strike on the outside corner, 41 stolen bases, and having a brilliant September, hitting well over 300.
Fits in with the personality of this team, really, in that he is a good fielder, makes contact and steal bases, and that's what this entire Brewer team does.
And right off the mound, Moore has trouble with it, throws the ball past McGuire, and on at second base is Hamilton, and he is rounding second, not stopping and heading for third, and he'll go in there standing up. So Moore mishandled the comebacker and then threw wide to Mark McGuire, and the Brewers, with 1 out, have a runner at third base.
Last night we saw one of the best fielding pitchers in the game in Ron Darling. Chances are he'd have had that, but you see Mike Moore, a catchable ball, and with all the foul territory here at the Coliseum, the end result is the same as Darryl Hamilton hitting a triple, because by the time this ball is shagged down near the Milwaukee bullpen, you can see Hamilton digging for third and making it easily.
A 3-base throwing error charged to Mike Moore. So now the Brewers have a runner at third with 1 out, and here's Paul Molitor. Molitor, 4th in the American League, hitting .321. 194 base hits. He had a shot at 200. He had 1 hit last night. Good speed at third base for Milwaukee, and the first pitch is in the dirt, blocked by Steinbach. 1-0 is the count.
Congratulations to Carlos Baerga, fine young second baseman of the Cleveland Indians, who got his 200th hit last night to match Kirby Puckett, the only other big leaguer with 200 hits.
First American League second baseman to amass 200 hits.
He is developing into really one of the best all-around players in the American League.
Moore checking Hamilton at third base. Again, it's in the dirt, and the count is 2-0. Molitor last night said, you know, you want to be positive and you never give up, but you have to have a realistic view. And he said, realistically, our chances are very, very slim. That doesn't dim our enthusiasm, but that's the way it is, and you got to prepare yourself for it. 2-0. Should get a good pitch here from Moore. And it's now 3 balls and no strikes. On deck is Robin Yount.
So early indication of some of Mike Moore's problems. Yes, his record is 16-12, but the 99 walks point up how defensive he pitches here in the first inning.
And he loses Molitor, trots to first base. Not only the 99 walks, Jim, but he has 21 wild pitches. And I'm sure he's aware of that with a runner at third base, and he almost threw a couple away there.
Now, the A's played the infield back, so obviously they're willing to give up 1 run, but maybe Moore is saying, hey, I'd rather face Yount than Molitor. That's a pretty tough choice right there, but to give a team like this an extra base runner early usually works against you.
No, Moore in the first inning jammed, mostly of his own doing, with runners at first and third and 1 out, and here is Robin Yount. He's knocked in 76 runs this season. And of course, this is where the Brewers really cause fits for opposing teams with hit and run, steal situations, and they have a man at the plate who can handle the bat and go to the opposite field. First pitch to Yount is low for a ball. Well, we've seen 2 3,000 hit achievements in Yount and Brett. Dave Winfield knocking on the door.
Where he's going, you could see that about August of next year.
Right. 1-0 the count. Brewers with a chance to take a lead here as Molitor dives back to first, and Yount, who likes to use the right side of the field. McGuire is holding the runner on, and second baseman Bordick is shaded toward second. So you see the area he has on the right side of the infield.
See, all those plays right there, those throws are being called by the bench, and that's what Tony La Russa pays very close attention to. He'll do it against Toronto if they're the winner. And he's got one of the best behind the plate at throwing runners out. Terry Steinbach at 42%. That's well above the league average.
Fly ball hit to right field. Hamilton will tag up. Ruben Sierra makes the catch in fair territory. Here comes the throw to the plate. The runner going to second base, no throw. And the Brewers take a 1-0 lead. So alert base running by Paul Molitor, who tags up and goes to second. That was a big play for Paul. And an RBI for Robin Yount as Hamilton scores and Milwaukee has taken a 1-0 lead.
Now the Brewers get a bit of a break here. Ruben Sierra, some of his Texas habits sneak back into his game. That's what the Rangers are known for, not making the fundamental plays, throwing to the right base. And as Hamilton slides home, that throw came in to first base to Mark McGuire. And as soon as Molitor saw that throw coming in, he took off for second base. Throw should have gone to second base.
So it's 1-0. There are two down, but a runner in scoring position for Greg Vaughn, who has been potent at the bat here in this final month after slumping most of the year. That .228 batting average is deceiving. 23 homers and 78 runs batted in, and many of them here in the final month. Foul back. Joe Carter has hit a 2-run homer for the Blue Jays, who have jumped up ahead of the Tigers 2-0 in the bottom of the first inning at Skydome. Toronto wins the game. It matters not what the Brewers do here against the A's this afternoon. One ball and one strike the count. 2-1 to Vaughn. This is Moore's second start against the Brewers. He did not last long the first time. He lost to Jamie Navarro and did not finish the third inning. He gave up 9 hits and 8 runs in his first outing and only outing against Milwaukee this year. Went after a pitch down and fouls it at the plate. Count is 2-2 to Greg Vaughn.
American League Championship Series will feature a lot of forkballs or split fingers, whatever you choose to call it. And that was an example right there with Mike Moore. Darling has one. Stewart, David Cone, Jack Morris.
Moore working 2-2, and the count runs full to Greg Vaughn. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Brewers come back. You'll see more sliders, fastballs from their pitching staff with Navarro and Wegman, Bonus, Chris Bosio.
3-2 and 2 down. And another foul at the plate. So Vaughn stays alive. Vaughn, talking to him last night, talking about his slow start, said he tried to do too much. You know, he had some pretty mighty numbers last year, Jim, and you know, he started thinking long ball, and once he settled down and realized that, you know, you can do a lot of things with the bat, he came around this final month.
A lot of key RBIs in September.
Molitor has the lead at second base. The Brewers with a run in here in the top of the first inning. With 2 down, here's the 3-2 pitch, and it's hit in the air to shallow right field. Bordick out there calls for it and makes the catch. The Brewers get a run. It is unearned. So it's Milwaukee 1, Oakland coming to bat here in the Bay Area. Ricky Henderson, who's been sidelined, is back in the lineup, leading off in left field for the A's. Dave Henderson in the number 2 hole in center field. Batting third, Ruben Sierra, who was 3 for 5 last night for Oakland. Harold Baines, the designated hitter. Mark McGuire will be at first base. He's the home run king for the A's this year. Carney Lansford at third, batting 6th. Jerry Steinbach batting in the number 7 slot. Hitting 8th is Mike Bordick, and Walt Weiss, the switch hitting shortstop, batting ninth against Ricky Bones, who started the year with San Diego.
Traded for Gary Sheffield, 23 years old. You see his .500 record in 27 starts. And what Milwaukee looks for Bones, with a pretty good fastball, slider, and change, is about 5 innings, 2 times through the batting order. That's what he's averaged. Take a look at this league-leading fielding team for the Brewers. Greg Vaughn in left, Robin Yount in center, and Darrell Hamilton in right. And around the infield, Kevin Seitzer's the third baseman. Rookie of the Year candidate Pat Listash at short. Scott Fletcher, the veteran at second. B.J. Surhoff, who does a lot of the catching, will play first today. And rookie Dave Nilsson, the Aussie, will catch Ricky Bones.
Ricky Henderson stepping in for the A's. And if Tony La Russa expressed any irritation of any of the players who have been ailing lately, it has been Ricky Henderson, who has not started in 6 of the last 7 games. He's had back spasms and the shoulder and neck problems, and they want to see how he can do going into the LCS.
Got a chance to test that neck out real early. Ricky Bones says, I'll find out how stiff that neck is. Backs him up with the first pitch.
Bones 9-9 on the year, making his 31st start of the year. Has appeared 3 times in relief. Falling behind Ricky, 2-0 with Dave Henderson on deck. Deep drive foul and into the off the facade, actually. He gave that quite a ride.
Most of the Oakland hitters, Ricky no exception, when Ricky Bones falls behind, they're going to be sitting on one pitch, that fastball. And Bones does not change speeds a great deal. And like most young pitchers, when they get in a 2-0 count, they're reduced to throwing that number 1, the fastball.
Ricky Henderson has 55 leadoff home runs in his career. And of course, the A's can certainly use him after his terrific offensive performance against Toronto in the LCS back in '88. 3 balls and 1 strike. And Henderson's aboard, and he'll be a threat to go. Right now, for an update, Pat O'Brien on what's doing in Detroit, Toronto.
All right, Dick, thank you. Bottom of the first, Joe Carter with a huge at-bat, 2-run homer, his 34th on the season. Off pitcher David Haas. If you're going to hit him, now's the time. 2-0 Toronto. Back to Dick and Kitty.
Well, last night, the Blue Jays had a 6-1 lead behind Jack Morris, and that game got a little too close for comfort for the Jays, although they won by a run.
They're playing a team that they don't hold you down very well, the Tigers, but they will put some points on the board. Last night's game pretty normal for them, 8-7.
Ricky Henderson, 5th in the league in stolen bases with 48, gets a throw over to first base. Dave Henderson has appeared in only 18 games. He has been mired on the disabled list. Has hit only 150 since coming off the DL.
Tony La Russa said he has been beaten at the plate in his at-bats. He's not been ready for big league pitching because of the inactivity. If he is ready and on his game, he is the perfect hitter right here to hit this ball between the hole first and second. Can handle a low pitch well and can really inside out that ball to right field.
Dave Henderson with a single in last night's game. There's the lead by Ricky Henderson. Fastball on the inside corner. Ricky Bones before the game was in the Milwaukee dressing room looking at tapes of the last time he pitched against the A's, and it was a win for him as he worked 7 1/3 innings, giving up 1 run on 3 hits. And he was talking to someone and said, I've got to start inside. I got to establish the inside part of the plate. And he has tried to do that thus far on Dave Henderson, is ahead of him 1-1.
See, that's quite a change in pitching philosophy. I don't know if I agree entirely with that. The theory used to be you pitch outside to get a hit, and then you back a hitter off inside. Then you go back out. But to come inside early can be dangerous.
Henderson doesn't go. There's another pitch on the inside corner, and it's 2 strikes to Dave Henderson.
You know, if you come inside early to power hitters like Dave Henderson, now this was right on the inside corner, but most of the time early in the count, a hitter is more ready to pull the ball, and he's much more ready for the inside pitch than later in the count.
So he has given Henderson 2 pitches inside. Let's see if he goes away here. 0-2. He's got a pitch to waste. And it's a broken bat looper. And it's fielded by the shortstop Listash, who will then go on to second and flip to Fletcher for the force out. He jammed Dave Henderson, so he went inside on 3 successive pitches. And they got the lead man, and Dave Henderson is aboard.
And with 2 strikes, hitters are jammable. See, he's protecting the plate there, and that's why Bowness just buries that fastball in on him. Listash wants to find out, who do I get, Ricky or Dave Henderson? No chance to get Hendu at first, so he takes the easy out at second.
So Hendu is the base runner. He's got that infectious smile, doesn't he? Ever since he's been in baseball, and you got to go back to '86, the big hero there.
Always, I guess I liken him to Kirby Puckett of the Minnesota Twins. Always gives you the impression that he really enjoys playing this game, and he does. Both of them do.
Here's Ruben Sierra. Grounds it on the big hop to Fletcher. Over to second for 1. The return throw not in time. But again, they get the lead man. Dave Henderson is erased, and Sierra is the base runner with 2 outs. Of course, Dave Henderson with his great effort for the California Angels against the Red Sox, and that was the last time we had an American League Championship Series that went the full 7 games.
Watching that at bat there, Ruben Sierra, Ricky Bowness. Jose Canseco was not the only fast driver here in Oakland. Ruben Sierra has a brand new Lamborghini, and he took Ricky Bowness for a little spin yesterday. I understand a rather high rate of speed. Ricky said, hey, I got to pitch tomorrow. Let's tone this thing down a little bit, get me back home.
Hope his head's not spinning. 2 down, runner at first base, and a drive hit deep to center field. Robin Yount is back on the track, and this ball is, it's either caught or over the fence. No sign yet, and it is a home run. A home run for Harold Baines. Yount gave it a great try. 16th home run of the year for Harold Baines, and it is a 2-0 game, 2-1 game in favor of the Oakland A's, as Baines has driven in his 75th and 76th runs of the season.
Great plate coverage by Harold Baines, and Robin Yount just says, I'm going to run till I run out of room. And boy, he collides with that wall. A little bit of whiplash right there. A quick check to see where he's at on the warning track. Thinks he has room and almost comes up with it.
Mark McGwire hits a deep drive, and this is out of here into the left field bleachers. That's number 42 for Mark McGwire. Ties Jose Gonzalez of the Texas Rangers for the American League lead. Back-to-back home runs by Harold Baines and Mark McGwire. Long ball is back in Oakland, and it is now a 3-1 ball game. And look how quiet the Milwaukee dugout is.
Notorious first pitch hitter if it's close to the strike zone. Mark McGwire, no exception here. 27th home run that Bowness has surrendered. And you see it up in the strike zone, right in the joy zone for McGwire. And that'll get the Brewers bullpen up quickly.
104 runs batted in now for Mark McGwire on the year as Carney Lansford takes a strike. McGwire coming off a miserable year. He's got to be a comeback player of the year possibility. Hit only .201 last season. Drove in 75 runs, so he's back to his home run power year of the year before when he hit 39 homers and drove in 108, and it's now 3-1 in favor of the A's. Lansford takes inside, and the count is 1-1 to Carney. And we'll have early activity in the Milwaukee Brewers bullpen. 2 balls and 1 strike, the count to Lansford, and he chops this one foul.
Mentioned that the choice of Ricky Bowness today, really the Brewers' number 5 starter, was to try to get him through the batting order twice. And I'm sure there's a lot of Brewer fans that why didn't he come back with Cal Eldred? But a young pitcher with such a great arm, threw about 120 pitches his last start. Phil Garner said, I do not want to chance that, and Bowness has been doing a good job for me.
2-2 pitch. Fly ball out to shallow center field. Robin Yount is there, and he'll make the catch for the 3rd out, but long ball damage. Back-to-back homers by Baines and McGwire. It's 3-1 in favor of the A's after 1. Tony La Russa, talking about the overall health of the ball club, is hopeful that all of the aches and pains will be a lot better come Wednesday, and it's an advantage for the A's and La Russa that they have until Wednesday to play the first game of the series.
Of course, he said it. I'm used to it. It's happened all year where I have to wonder what my lineup is going to be and when I get to the ballpark.
B.J. Surhoff, the versatile catcher who can play first base. He was an infielder earlier in his career, so he has thought a lot about hitting and probably take some years off of the burden of being a catcher, extending his career somewhat. Surhoff fouls it out of play. And the count is 1 ball and 2 strikes, hitting .254 with 62 runs batted in. Mike Moore staked to a 2-run lead here as we work here in the second inning at Oakland Coliseum. Forkball is down, and the count is 2 balls and 2 strikes. The back-to-back home runs in the first inning by Baines and McGuire marked the 5th time this year that the A's have had that situation, and 4 times McGuire has been involved, as he has now tied Juan Gonzalez of the Texas Rangers for the American League home run lead. Here's the 2-2 pitch from Mike Moore. Another foul at the plate. That might have nicked Steinbach a bit.
Turned into, I think, the best all-around catcher in the American League when you combine hitting, catching ability, and throwing ability. And you mentioned the injury that he has. It doesn't hamper him catching the ball or hitting. It's keep your eyes on him when he has to run the bases. That's when that lower abdominal strain causes him some pain. Tony La Russa wants him to take it a little easy.
2-2 pitch to Surhoff, and it's grounded to the right side. McGuire makes a nice diving play, throws to Moore covering. And there is Oakland's defense at its best. We didn't see it at its best in the first inning when Moore had a 3-base throwing error, and a good play all around. 1 down.
Gold Glove winner a couple of years ago. Mark McGuire ranges far to his right to get that. I don't think he's in the class with some of the best fielding first basemen in the American League, like a Herbeck, Joyner, Mattingly, etc. But Mark McGuire's made a lot of improvement there. Earned a Gold Glove a couple of years ago.
McGuire and Herbeck, both big fellas, can really move, very agile at first.
Mobile, agile, and hostile.
I wouldn't know about that. Seitzer on the first pitch pops it up, and this will be an easier play for Mark McGuire. He's got it in foul territory, and quickly there are 2 down here in the second inning. The National League Championship Series will get underway Tuesday in Atlanta. Tuesday night, Wednesday afternoon, and then following a travel day, 3 games in Pittsburgh. If necessary, October 11th will be a Sunday evening. Doug Drabek and John Smoltz, Atlanta's starting pitchers, have been ineffective, and that's got to be a big worry to Bobby Cox going into the LCS.
Jim Leyland changed his original selection. Looked like they were going to go with rookie Tim Wakefield in Game 2. Now it's going to be Danny Jackson in Game 2.
Wakefield will pitch in the first game at Three Rivers Stadium. Here's Dave Nielsen, good-looking rookie catcher, native Australian. Takes a fastball from Mike Moore, strike 1. Well, last night, Milwaukee with a dramatic victory after Toronto had won, and it was the first time this year that the Brewers had to win to stay alive, and they did. But now the numbers are against them in both Toronto and here in Oakland, as the Blue Jays lead there, and the A's are in front here.
Percentages say they're going to come up a little short of miracles, but last night was an example. The Athletics were 80-0 when they left going into the 9th inning until last night. That's the first game they lost in that situation.
And Dennis Eckersley blew back-to-back save opportunities. That was a little unusual as well. Pitch is low, and it's 3-1 now to Nielsen with 2 down. Milwaukee Brewers with a record of 92-68. They had not won as many as 92 games since 1982, when they captured 95 and won the pennant. Up high, ball 4, and Nielsen's aboard. That's the second walk issued by Moore. So a 2-out base runner for the Brewers here in the second inning. We'll get underway Wednesday. Jim and I will be either in Toronto or Milwaukee for the start of the ALCS for night games Wednesday and Thursday, and then after a travel day we'll have 3 games, if necessary, Game 5 on Monday here in Oakland. All afternoon games, and then if necessary, we go back east. Scott Fletcher, the hitter. One of the big pickups by Sal Bando this year to fill a hole at second base. Breaking ball is in there to Fletcher for a strike.
It's a question of whether we're going to be having a bratwurst or lunch at the Hard Rock Cafe next week Wednesday. One of the two.
Either one sounds inviting, partner.
How about this throwback to an old-time hitter choking that far up on the bat, Scott Fletcher? Don't see many guys do that anymore.
And it's lifted into the second baseman, Bordick. He's got a play, and that'll do it. So the Brewers lead one. In the middle of the second inning, it's the Athletics 3 and the Brewers 1. Kind of a contrast amongst the contenders as to how they scored runs.
The Tigers up on top because they hit so many home runs, but the numbers comparable, but look at the different approach. Toronto hits more home runs than Oakland. Milwaukee does it with speed, yet the Brewers are right there at third in the American League. Toronto's second, and Oakland down to sixth in runs scored.
But you need the long ball when you're trailing, especially late in the game when the running game isn't quite as effective. And that's an advantage that the A's and the Blue Jays have. Terry Steinbach leading off, hitting .278. Those are his numbers. And lines a base hit over the glove of Kevin Seitzer into left field. So Steinbach's aboard. So for the second straight inning, the Athletics have the leadoff man on, and that's the third hit issued by Ricky Bonas. The first two were home run balls.
Past the first test, Terry Steinbach said to Tony La Russa, I'd like to get about 8 at-bats to make sure I'm sharp. No question about it in his first one, and as soon as he hit that ball, he was very careful to just trot down to first base. It's not that he's not hustling. He just does not want to aggravate that injury.
He had missed 5 straight games, but had been hitting very well prior to that injury, and he has really emerged as Steinbach as one of the leading catchers in the league, if not the best all around,
I think, right now.
Mike Bordick on the hit and run, base hit to right field. Stopping at second base is Steinbach as Hamilton retrieves to the infield. So Bordick with a base hit and runners at first and second. With nobody out, James Austin, who got up to throw after the back-to-back home runs by Baines and McGuire in the Oakland first, is now up and throwing once again. There's Austin.
And Phil Garner will have to make a quick move. He may go another hitter because Weiss, in all probability, will try to sacrifice here, but will not be long before he has to keep this game from getting out of control. At least try to give his team a chance, not worried about what Toronto does.
Well, we're going to have a conference at the mound in any event to give Austin some more time.
Probably a little buying time, and also pitching coach Don Rowe. I talk about where they're going to defense the A's.
A man who gets very little credit, I might add, for what many people consider as good a pitching staff as there is in the American League.
He's a lot of fun to talk to. He's reminds me a little bit of one of my former pitching coaches, Johnny Sain. Loves to talk about what makes the ball sink, curve, give pitchers little ideas of how they can improve themselves. And I'm sure he would not take all of the credit. He said you have to have pitchers with live arms, but this is the first time in a long time that the Milwaukee Brewers have had a starting staff go through the entire season and not have pitchers on the disabled list like they did with Ted Aguirre and Ron Robinson years ago.
He had his first stint as a major league pitching coach with the Chicago White Sox when Jim Fregosi managed that club. Walt Weiss with runners at first and second and nobody out, switch hitter. He's hitting .232 as a left-handed batter, more effective from that side. Seitzer and Surhoff are in at first and third, looking for the sacrifice attempt. He wasn't showing it there as Weiss takes ball one from Bonas. On deck, the top of the order, and Ricky Henderson. And Ricky Bonas in a very tenuous situation here. And could come out of the game at any point here. And Weiss hitting away all the way, fouls it out of play, and the count is 1-1.
Well, on your toes and eyes wide open if you're Kevin Seitzer or B.J. Surhoff. They are both taking a couple of strides toward home plate, anticipating the bunt. And Weiss not showing bunt on the first two pitches. Sometimes managers will do that, and they'll turn around on the third pitch when maybe the fielders aren't expecting it, and that's the time they'll put the bunt on.
The outfield is not playing shallow, particularly in left center and in left field. And there's the bunt. It's fouled off to the left, so the count 1 ball and 2 strikes. Now Seitzer and Surhoff can move back, and Surhoff is looking into the Milwaukee dugout to check as to how far back he should go. Rene Latchman, the third base coach, flashing the signs, but with the count 1 ball and 2 strikes, Weiss should be hitting away. Nobody out. The A's with a threat here. They scored 3 runs to answer the 1-run Milwaukee first inning. 3-1 the score. Up high, 2-2 to Walt Weiss.
Another reason that he did allow him to bunt one time, but one of the other factors is Terry Steinbach again cannot run well, so the sacrifice bunt here might be a low percentage for Oakland. They could get Steinbach rather easily at third base.
Seitzer playing deep now at third, several steps behind the bag, and going with the opposite field is Weiss out of play. One of the decisions that Tony La Russa has to make regarding Walt Weiss, Mike Bordick, and Lance Blankenship is to how the middle of the diamond is going to work when the LCS gets underway.
He's got nice options there with Mike Gallego leaving for big money in New York. How are the A's going to fill that bill? Tony Phillips a few years ago provided that element to this team, and now Bordick and Blankenship have filled in to help Weiss.
They all can do the job. 2-2 pitch, and it's off Surhoff. The only play is to first base unassisted to get Weiss as the runners advance. Surhoff played it the smart way. He didn't want it to get through and just blocked it with his body, but now the runners are at second and third with 1 out.
Here's the catcher's reflexes. B.J. Surhoff, normally a catcher, and this is the way you'd block a ball if you were a catcher. Those same kind of reactions help him out right there to keep that hot shot from Weiss in front of him. Only 1 play, and it serves as a sacrifice.
And that is going to be all for Ricky Bones. Phil Garner is out of the dugout, so we're going to see James Austin. So they're playing this game as you would, obviously, the 7th game of a World Series. They cannot afford a loss, so Ricky Bones does not last the 2nd inning. James Austin will be the new Milwaukee pitcher when we return to the Oakland Coliseum in just a moment.
This relief break is sponsored by Rolaids.
And a Milwaukee pitching change here in the 2nd inning. James Austin, who has pitched 21 1/3 shutout innings since July the 21st. He has been a red-hot reliever for the Brewers. That's his record and earned run average. Pretty impressive. His relief Ricky Bones here, and will face Ricky Henderson.
Converted shortstop, and he's been a part of that Milwaukee bullpen that has made such an improvement from last year.
They're going to walk Ricky Henderson to load the bases and pitch to Dave Henderson.
This again is a situation where normally Phil Garner would not do this, but you pointed up that it's like the 7th game of the World Series. He wants to eliminate pitching to one of the Hendersons, and since Dave has not played a lot this year, load him up, take our chances on getting a double play, says Garner.
Ricky, by the way, still looking for that 1 hit that would give him 2,000 in his big league career, and his next home run would make it 200 in his career. He won't get that opportunity, and didn't in the 1st inning, so he has walked twice in the game, this one intentionally. And the bases are loaded with 1 away. Brewers, you mentioned their pitching improvement, particularly the bullpen.
Now look at the improvement in the bullpen from last year. The ERA, 2 runs a game, and the record, and the names like James Austin, Mike Fetters, Darren Holmes, Doug Henry. Not names that a lot of baseball people recognize, but have they done a job in helping that pitching staff turn around?
And a big opportunity for the Oakland A's, who have lost 8 of their last 10 games, including 6 games to the Milwaukee Brewers. Want to end up on a high before the playoffs start Wednesday. Dave Henderson with the bases loaded and 1 out. 3-1 in favor of Oakland. First pitch is a fastball from Austin for a strike. Dennis Eckersley still the leading reliever in the American League point-wise. Lee Smith of the Cardinals with a slight edge in the National League. 0-1 the count. Setting up on the outside of the plate. Fastball, and they want to appeal, and they said that Henderson went around. That's first base umpire Rick Reed. on the appeal, the count is 0-2 to Dave Henderson. Did he go around? Yes.
Oh, yeah. Once the barrel goes through the hitting area, past the plate.
So Austin is ahead of Henderson. In no hurry here. 28-year-old right-hander who lives in Reston, Virginia. On deck is Ruben Sierra. One ball and 2 strikes. So this is such a pivotal inning for the Milwaukee Brewers, because if Oakland were to cash in with a couple of more runs, that could be the determining factor in the Brewers season, as Phil Garner spotted something and he runs out to the mound to talk to Austin.
One characteristic of Phil Garner all year has been to tell his pitchers, throw strikes. If you can't throw strikes and work at a decent pace, you can't pitch for me, says Garner. If you look at their staff, they're #1, issuing the fewest walks in the league, as well as having the best all-around staff. And that was probably a quick visit. Hey, throw it over. We can't get him out if you don't throw it over.
Well, he's been an optimist. He said the pressure's on Toronto when this series started, didn't he? Earl Weaver used to do that. He used to put the pressure on the other team. We'll win all our games. They've got to win a lot of theirs. Sometimes it works. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Dave Henderson. The bases are loaded with 1 out. He gets a good pitch to hit and pops it up into shallow center field. Steinbach is tagging at third. Right fielder Hamilton makes the catch. Going back is Steinbach, as the throw is cut off by Surhoff. And a big second out here in the second inning. But a dangerous hitter coming to the plate in Ruben Sierra.
Second time Dave Henderson has been retired on a pitch in on the hands, and he's really been jammed. And that's something that Tony La Russa and hitting coach Doug Rader will look at. When you're not sharp, you haven't played a lot, your timing is not there. The bat's just a little slower, and these 2 at-bats evidence of that for Dave Henderson, getting jammed on both of them.
2 down, the bases loaded. Toronto still leading Detroit 2-0 there in the bottom of the 3rd inning. Here is Sierra, who bounced into a fielder's choice but scored a run last inning. The A's have won 15 and lost 10 in games that Sierra has started since coming over in that big trade from the Texas Rangers. Switch hitter, been more effective as a right-handed batter this year. His first pitch is a forkball low. 1-0 the count. So Steinbach, the runner at third base with 2 outs. Mike Bordick is on at second base. And there is Ricky Henderson on at first with his lead. Sierra with 3 hits in last night's game. Missing outside with the fastball. 2-0.
You see him rock back on that leg, and he again has that high leg kick. And usually hitters like this are what pitchers will call slider speed bat. You want to throw them high and hard or low and slow, but anything in between, boy, they are right on. And Ruben Sierra fits that scouting report.
Check swing, foul out of play. 2-1. Austin got away with one there. There was a little furor over Jose Canseco, who came here with the Texas Rangers prior to Milwaukee's visit, and some of the comments that he made about Tony La Russa not being a player's manager, and Tony's comments about Canseco saying he wasn't interested in winning. And when he left town, Jose said, I hope that this brings an end to it. He doesn't want any more war of words. Here's the 2-1 pitch to Sierra. 3 balls and a strike now to Ruben. And James Austin is 1 pitch away from forcing in a run. No activity in the Milwaukee bullpen. Austin in relief of Ricky Bones, who did not have it today and came out here in the second inning. Here's the 3-1 pitch to Sierra. Ball 4. And Sierra draws a walk. Steinbach will come in. And the A's lead at 4-1. And Sierra will pick up his 84th run batted in as a result of that base on ball.
Unusual for this Milwaukee staff. Bones with a leadoff walk to Henderson. That ended up costing him a run, and now the bases loaded walk. That's a strength of the Brewers team. Throw it over the plate.
Doesn't get easier with Harold Baines, who hit a 2-run homer to right center field his first time up. Fastball is in for strike one. Baines, the designated hitter. 4-1 the score in favor of the A's. Back-to-back home runs by Baines and McGuire last inning. And then the A's filling the bases and a walk to Sierra, driving in the 4th run. 1 ball, 1 strike to Baines. A terrific career with the Chicago White Sox, then went to Texas, and a good late season pickup for the A's 2 years ago. Fastball rolled to first base, and Surhoff is there. He'll make the play unassisted to retire the side. But the A's get another run, and after 2 complete here in Oakland, it's 4-1 Athletics. This is one of your pet gauges of teams scoring 4 or more runs, and it really bears up.
When you see the Oakland Athletics up on top with that 82 wins, you know, you can score 19 runs one day, 1 the next. You're averaging 10 a game. Big deal. You're 1-1. But the teams that win games when they score 4 or more, historically, are the teams that are up on top. Minnesota Twins did it last year. Oakland this year, the highest percentage when they get to this level. Because with a good pitching staff, you should hold the opposition to 3. So, pretty simple math. You score 4, you ought to win most of them.
Oakland's already scored 4 as Listash leading off in the 3rd inning. Any further thoughts on the Rookie of the Year balloting? Last week we thought Listash, because he's been in the race, has better numbers mostly.
I still think that. Fleming won last night, shutout. And, well, he's had a marvelous year, and so has Kenny Lofton. But I think what Listash has brought to this ball club in a pennant race at such a vital position, it's a close call, but I still think if I were given an opportunity to vote, he'd be the guy.
Nearly strike. Steinbach wanted it. The count is 1 ball and 2 strikes. And of course, I've got to throw in Cal Eldred. You look at, you know, a guy who was 11-1, has won 10 straight games. I know he wasn't up all year long, but he ranks with some of the top pitchers who have entered baseball late in the year. Whitey Ford was 9-1 in 1950 with the Yankees. Tom Morgan started out, he won 7 straight games for the Yankees in 52. Mel Stottlemyre in 64. I know I'm naming Yankee pitchers, but they've been impressive.
Have you been talking to George on the phone? You coming up with all these?
You know, I'm glad you mentioned his name, because the last time I mentioned George Steinbrenner's name, you didn't look kindly upon him.
But you're right. The Yankees had a history of bringing up pitchers like halfway through the year that did what Cal Eldred is doing this year. Yeah, he's a candidate, but I still don't think he'd overtake Listash in the voting.
Pitch is inside, and the count is 3-2 after Moore got ahead of Listash. No balls and 2 strikes. Cal Eldred, 11-1, 10 straight wins. He's scheduled to pitch tomorrow. Pitch is inside, ball 4. So Moore really lost Listash. And, you know, the Milwaukee Brewers may be down 4-1. Teams don't normally run that much when they're down, but the Brewers will, and he's aboard.
That's probably the most frustrating base on balls for a pitcher, as well as a pitching coach and a manager, is when you get ahead of a hitter like this that you're trying to make him earn his way on, then it's like giving him a double.
And normally you don't want to take too many chances, but you can play hit and run in this situation because you're down 4-1. You're not a home run hitting team, and Phil Garner wants to manufacture something to get some excitement going and get back in the ball game. Let's see if they do that. The first pitch to Hamilton is ball 1. He reached base on a 3-base throwing error by Mike Moore in the first inning and scored the Milwaukee run. We'll see how Phil Garner plays it here with a runner at first base and nobody out. Lansford is in at third base. Fastball on the corner, and it's 1-1 now to Darrell Hamilton.
Tony La Russa would probably like to see a stolen base attempt here. He'd like to find out Steinbach's throwing accuracy after the week layoff with the injury.
He wants to see every situation, I'm sure, the last 2 games, so that his team is up to speed going into the first game of the LCS.
Yeah, there's there's arguments both ways. Is it an advantage to win it early and relax the last week? Then they'll say if you don't win, well, they were stale, you know. And then if you have a tight race to the end and you don't win, they say, well, they're burned out. So you can make a case either way. But I think he'd like to just see 2 nice, normal ball games. His team gets some at-bats and be sharp and healthy going in.
Fastball is low, and the count 2 balls and 1 strike to Darryl Hamilton with Paul Molitor on deck. I still don't know any team that would say, we don't want to win it early. We want to win to the go to the very end on the last day so we have momentum for the league championship. I don't believe momentum anyway. I think that you said it best last year. Momentum is tomorrow's starting pitcher. Fouled out of play by Hamilton. Evens the count, 2 balls and 2 strikes.
I think most managers would say that. Whoever starts for me tomorrow will have a influence on what momentum might be.
Our report from Skydome is that Juan Guzman of the Blue Jays, who apparently will follow Jack Morris in the LCS, with David Cone pitching in Game 3 the way they've shaped their rotation, has retired the first 11 Tigers, striking out 6 of them. So Guzman may be getting back to midseason form.
Yeah, there was a little bit of concern about whether Guzman was healthy as well as sharp, and Jimmy Key's name came up as a possible starter in Game 3. But when you see that graphic there, Guzman evidently back on track, and that'll allow him to start Cone in Game 3. Pretty good trio.
Runner doesn't go, started to go with Listash and then went back. And it's 3-2 now to Hamilton. So Mike Moore laboring here. He was ahead of Listash 0-2 and lost him, and has gone to a full count to Darryl Hamilton with Paul Molitor on deck. Moore already has walked 3 batters in the game. He has not allowed a base hit. A's lead it 4-1. Brewers trying to strike back here in the top of the 3rd inning. Listash is off on the 3-2 pitch, so the Brewers were playing hit and run with nobody out and the count full. So Pat will return to first base. What a season the Milwaukee Brewers have had. I don't think there is anyone connected with baseball or close to the Milwaukee club that has any regrets. This is a team that has scrapped and fought and played gutty baseball to the next to the last day of the season if it should end today. And they have won the hearts of baseball fans throughout the country.
Probably a half a dozen timely home runs from being on top in the entire season.
Listash gets a good jump, and the pitch is lined to left field. Ricky Henderson, shading his eyes from the sun, makes the catch for the out. Listash goes back to first base. And right now, let's check in again with Pat O'Brien for an update. Pat?
All right, Dick, we were listening in. Let's show you some of that midseason form of Juan Guzman. Through 4, he's perfect. That was his 7th K. The Jays putting it all together early. 2-0. Back to you.
Pat, thank you very much. But as you mentioned, Detroit with those big home run bats never really out of the game.
Get a couple men on, they get back in it in a hurry. Almost pulled it off last night.
Paul Molitor. Said, you know, I hope that baseball doesn't lose a lot of young athletes to other sports, and that's a concern for me. I said, look at yourself with your physique. Baseball's a perfect sport. There goes the runner, and a good jump by Listash, and a good throw by Steinbach. That's what Tony La Russa wanted to see, and that'll bring a smile to his face. He got a tough base runner who got a good jump, and Listash is erased. Bordick with the tag.
One of the best in the league. We mentioned 42%, laid off a week, and yet makes a perfect throw right on target, and Listash just slides in and literally tags himself out with the shoulder. That's what's a concern, and what the A's do so well is control the running game, whether it's Milwaukee or Toronto.
Brewers, the first team in American League East history to get 200 stolen bases in a year. They lead the major leagues. But now there are 2 down. The bases are clear, and the count to Molitor is 2 balls and 1 strike.
Nothing will snuff out a rally like if you're Toronto and you have Roberto Alomar trying to steal, or here with Listash and he gets thrown out. It's like, wow, that's how we win games, and they just shut us down. And Steinbach, one of the best at doing
it. In there for a strike. Molitor tried to check a swing, and the count is 2-2. You know, it kind of like in basketball, like a rejection, a block shot by a center. where it does a little more psychological damage than you think.
Puts a little exclamation point on that out.
Going after a pitch outside, and Molitor fouls it off. The Brewers have been sizzling since September the 13th. As you look at the American League East race, Milwaukee is 15-3, but Toronto has only 3 more losses, and that's where the Blue Jays, when they talk about how this team collapses at the end, Blue Jays have not collapsed at all this month.
If they did, Milwaukee would be on top.
I mean, here's a team, the Brewers, who are 22-7 since the beginning of September, and they picked up only 2 games. Got to do better than that, but you need help from other clubs. 3-2 pitch, and Molitor hits it down the right field line, but this is twisting, and it is foul.
Hey, nice play.
Great catch. That'll be a future. He worries about Molitor, about future ball players.
Yeah.
That kid will be a major league player.
Take your glove to the ballpark, as that young man did. And a lot of the guys like Paul Molitor did when they were kids.
Two and 2 out here in the top of the 3rd inning. The A's are in front 4-1. Toronto is leading Detroit 2-0. Juan Guzman is unhittable. Ball 4. Molitor walks for the 2nd time, and that's the 4th base on balls issued by Mike Moore. Along with Jim Cott, this is Dick Stockton here at the Oakland Coliseum, where we will be for games 3 and 4 and possibly game 5 next weekend in the American League Championship Series. The Athletics lead 4-1. Brewers scored a run in the 1st inning, but the A's struck back. Back-to-back home runs, a 2-run drive by Baines, followed by Mark McGwire's 42nd homer, and then a bases-loaded walk in the 2nd inning gave Oakland their 4th run. And the Brewers trying to claw back here. Robin Yount, he knocked in the run with a sacrifice fly to right field. Takes strike 1 from Moore. College football day today, and a final. Miami defeats Florida State 19-16. That won't be pleasing for Tony La Russa, who obtained his law degree from Florida State. 0-1 pitch and a high fly ball hit to deep center field, but Dave Henderson has plenty of room, and that'll do it. And we'll return to Oakland Alameda County Coliseum after this word from your local station. Let's go back to the 1st inning. Ricky Bones facing Mark McGwire. And that was home run number 42 for Mark McGwire to tie Juan Gonzalez of the Rangers. It followed on the heels of a Harold Baines 2-run smash to account for 3 of the 4 A's runs, and McGwire leading off in the bottom of the 3rd inning against James Austin, who relieved Bones in the 2nd inning. Lofts a breaking ball. That should drift out of play, although this is one of the ballparks with a wide area in foul territory, wide of 1st and 3rd.
Another first pitch fastball and McGwire swung at when he hit those 49 home runs in his rookie year. That's what he capitalized so much on. Here's a new hitter in the league, and pitchers saying, hey, challenge him, first ball, fastball, and he took advantage of it, and he's doing the same now this year.
In tight 1-1.
You like to play a lot of golf, and when you look at Mark McGwire's swing, you can liken it to a golfer's swing. They always talk about that soft right elbow, tucking it in, and that's what McGwire is doing to pile up those numbers this year that he didn't last year. Very relaxed with that right elbow tucked in.
Here's a pop foul. Chasing it is Nielsen, and that will bounce on top of the Brewers dugout. Remember earlier in the season? Earlier in the year when McGwire had the secret formula, wasn't going to tell anyone what it was that made the difference between his red-hot start from the bad year of a year ago.
Yeah, it's mainly arm tension. It's relaxed arms. No tension there with a relaxed back elbow, and what that does is it increases the bat speed. Then you make a little contact, and your confidence goes up, and away you go.
Before games, during batting practice, Doug Rader, the batting instructor, will feed baseballs to McGwire way behind home plate to wrap into the big net. Special project. And it's paid off. 1 ball, 2 strikes to the leadoff hitter for the A's here in the 3rd inning. He pitches on the corner for strike 3. And that is the first strikeout for James Austin. One away in the third inning, and let's check in with an update from Pat O'Brien.
All right, Dick, thank you. College football, long-awaited number 3 Florida State at number 2 Miami. Florida State with a chance to tie with 8 ticks on the clock. Dan Maury's 39-yard attempt wide right. Miami goes on to win, and we welcome those viewers, Dick.
All right, glad to have them. And, of course, I guess that doesn't make Bobby Bowden a bad coach, even though he lost that tough game. And Tony La Russa has been thrown out of the game by Durwood Merrill, and here's Tony to appeal it, but he's gone.
I don't know, is it Tony or Mark McGuire? I know there's been a lot of walks early in the game, and the pitchers, Bonus early on, and Moore have stared down at Durwood Merrill, questioning the strike zone. Now, it has not been a pitcher's zone, and all of a sudden McGuire gets rung up on what he thought was an outside pitch, and that's where the argument started.
So McGuire is thrown out of the game, and apparently, is that right, and not Tony La Russa. And that's not the scenario that Tony had planned, although McGuire is still sitting in there. Here's Carney Lansford with 1 out.
There's the culprit.
Goose Gossage.
Goose is on the DL and won't be eligible for postseason. But he said he was going to get his pom-poms out and cheer, and obviously he was.
And a line drive right at Pat Listash. Hit solidly by Lansford, but Austin has retired the first 2 batters here in the third inning. So Goose Gossage, apparently. We'll find out officially who has been tossed. Somebody has been.
Yeah, that's the word from the press box, that Goose Gossage. And evidently he'd been jawing at Durwood Merrill from the bench. We'll take a look at the last pitch to Mark McGuire and see what the argument was about.
Because the last thing Tony La Russa needed was to see McGuire take an early exit today. He needs him to take his swings. He had been bothered by that rib cage injury that forced him to miss 20 games. He had been a little sore lately. No balls and 1 strike to Terry Steinbach. Singled and scored a run last inning. Pops this one up to the right side of the infield. Scott Fletcher. High sky today with a bright sunshine and a 1-2-3 inning for the first time in the ball game for either side. And after 3 innings, it's 4-1 Oakland.
This game summary is sponsored by MasterCard.
Back-to-back home runs in the first inning for Oakland after the Brewers took a 1-0 lead, and then a bases-loaded walk to Sierra. That's been our story. 4-1 the score as the Brewers bat in the 4th inning against Mike Moore, looking for his 17th victory of the year. Greg Vaughn takes ball 1. Brewers are still looking for their first hit of the ball game. Moore has walked 4 batters and committed a 3-base throwing error in the first inning. Milwaukee's run was unearned. There's a good breaking pitch that Vaughn couldn't handle, and it's 1-1. Won't find a better day in the Bay Area, and a light breeze blowing from left to right. Breaking ball line to left field by Greg Vaughn, and the Brewers have their first base hit. And let's check in again with Pat O'Brien. Pat, what's happening?
All right, Dick, a Juan Guzman update. He walked 2 batters to lose his perfect game, but Dan Gladden at the plate, his 9th strikeout, a no-hitter through 5. Toronto leads 2-0 in the 5th. Back to you, Dick.
Great pitching by Juan Guzman, and Jack Morris struggled last night, but you know he'll be there when it counts. He loves the responsibility of pitching the big game. B.J. Surhoff takes a called strike. 0-1.
Our colleague Tim McCarver mentioned in the National League Championship Series he thought whichever team got the most out of their starting pitchers would win. The comparison in the American League is who outpitches who. Stewart and Morris, Darling and Guzman to get to the bullpen.
Moving to second base on should be a wild pitch is Greg Vaughn. If so, that'll be the 22nd wild pitch of the year for Mike Moore. Brewers have a runner at scoring position. And, of course, it's opposite in the American League. They said the relievers aren't that tough there, but you've got two outstanding relief corps in the American League.
Very deep in Toronto with Ward and Hinkie, and dominated by Eckersley here. Still question mark whether Jeff Russell is going to be available for postseason play with the ailing elbow.
Surhoff grounds it to the second baseman, Bordick. His play is to first base. Vaughn will go to third, and there's one away. They ruled it a pass ball charged to Terry Steinbach to allow Vaughn to move into scoring position. Let's see what happened. Mark McGwire's pitch that eventually Goose Gossage apparently was thrown out of the game.
You see Nielsen sitting outside, and he actually started to move outside a little farther, and then the ball moved back into him, but from that angle looked well off the plate. Durwood Merrill catching a little from the Oakland bench, and that's typical. An umpire will pick a guy that's not a game player and say, get out of here, and try to tone the bench down a little.
He's got to get his right arm ready for the League Championship Series.
Don't know what the alignment is, which game Durwood will be behind the plate in, but he'll have one of them in all probability.
Kevin Seitzer with one out and a runner at third, and a line drive snared by McGwire. He saved the run with that play. That is his second fine play going to his right in this game defensively, and there are two gone.
Well, that'll be another factor as we look forward to the American League Championship Series and the way these games are going. It slants toward Toronto. And at that position, Oakland with a bit of an edge. Mark McGwire, a better fielder than John Olerud of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Two down, so the Brewers with opportunities. Listash drew a leadoff walk last inning and then was thrown out attempting to steal on a great throw by Steinbach. Here they get a man in scoring position. They get the man to third with one out, and McGwire robs Seitzer of a base hit. But Dave Nielsen takes a strike with two men out here in the fourth inning. A's have shut down every Brewer threat since the first inning, when Milwaukee scored their only run without the benefit of a base hit. 0-1 to Nielsen with a runner at third base. Fouled out of play, and Moore jumps ahead of him, 2 strikes. Blue Jays threatening again in the bottom of the fifth inning. A Toronto victory or a Brewer loss to the A's will end it finally in the American League East. The best the Brewers can do is force a one-game playoff. They would have to win 2. Blue Jays would lose 2, and they would play the one-game playoff Monday in Toronto. It's a tall order. 0-2 pitch and a slash into center field for a base hit by Nielsen. That will score Vaughn. And the Brewers inch closer. RBI for Nielsen is 25th of the year, and it's now a 4-2 ball game in favor of Oakland.
And typical Brewers, they do not get back in many games with the long ball, but they'll come back one at a time. That's what they're trying to do right here. You mentioned the playoff game. As Nielsen, good plate coverage, see him take that pitch on the outside half, and he's able to get it up the middle. You talk about the playoff game. Chris Bosio did his workout the day before the game in preparation, hoping he gets a chance to pitch on Monday.
Fletcher on the first pitch, grounds it to shortstop. Weiss on the short hop, makes the play, and nonetheless, and that'll retire the side, but the Brewers get a run back. And a fine defensive play by Mark McGwire here in this inning.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Rolaids. Rolaids spells 100% relief. Canon CJ10 full-color copier, printer, scanner. And by Toyota. Toyota, I love what you do for me.
Well, tomorrow on the NFL Today, can Detroit find a way to get Barry Sanders motoring again? Can the 0-4 Raiders just win, baby? And a look at the man trying to lead the Vikings back to the top, Dennis Green. That's tomorrow at 12:30 Eastern on the NFL Today, the last word before kickoff. And the A's batting in the fourth inning. There's the story. 4-4-1, 2-2-0. Both Milwaukee runs off Mike Moore are unearned. And the number 8 hitter, Mike Moore, leading off. He singled to right field his first time up, takes a breaking ball, and it's 1-0.
One of the advantages of this ballpark is you look at hitting coach Doug Rader on your right, and then Dave Duncan, partially shielded by the backstop there. They're very close to the home plate area. Rader just had a conversation with McGuire about hitting, Duncan with Steinbach about Mike Moore's pitching.
And moments ago, here's McGuire and Rader having that talk that you mentioned.
See, from that angle, he can see McGuire in the batter's box, maybe make a little suggestion. He's talking about his stance. And that's one of the advantages of the proximity of that area to home plate here.
And a drive hit deep to left field by Bordick. Going back is Vaughn, and this is out of here. Home run for Mike Bordick. Three homers of the year, and more than half of his hits against Milwaukee this year have been for extra bases. He has 10 hits against Milwaukee, and 6 of them have been extra base hits.
Boy, what a contribution. Let's look at the pitch. He is so quick on the inside pitch from that stance, and that is his power zone. He does not miss many balls from the middle of the plate in. Certainly didn't miss that one.
And that is his 3rd home run, the 3rd home run of the ball game for the A's, and they have raised their lead now to 5-2. Milwaukee had scored in the top half of this inning as Austin's first pitch to Walt Weiss is taken for a ball, 1-0. Mike Bordick, who was amongst the league leaders in the first half of the season and really fell dramatically. His average after 0-5 last night fell to 297. He had been at the 300 level most of the year. Weiss bounced out to Surhoff unassisted his first trip. Breaking ball taken for a strike at the knees, 1-2.
Mike Bordick with a quick, or rather Walt Weiss with a quick check back to Derwin Merrill. Where was that pitch? You sure it was high enough? There's been a little questioning going on by both hitters and pitchers today.
1-2. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Weiss. Now 3-0 in favor of the Blue Jays on the bottom of the 5th inning. Dave Winfield, 40-year-old old man with over 100 runs batted in. He has another one today.
40-year-old young man.
I know. Tongue in cheek.
Right.
Slice to left field, but Vaughn playing perfectly. Shallow and close to the line, makes the play on Weiss, and there's one away. Today is Dave Winfield's 41st birthday, and he is celebrating it with an RBI and hopes to celebrate it with a division championship that will send him into postseason play.
Something when the Blue Jays signed Jack Morris and Dave Winfield, that was the design. Hey, we can win a division. It's the postseason performance they're looking for, and there'll be a lot of added pressure. Not that they're not capable of handling it, but a little extra pressure for both Winfield and Morris.
Ricky Henderson needs 1 hit for 2,000 career base hits, 1 home run for 200 career homers. He walked in the first inning and then was walked intentionally in the second. So no official at-bats yet for Ricky. 2 balls and no strikes to him. Big acquisition for the Blue Jays in getting Winfield, because the DH spot was one of their weak points last year. They had good hitting in the top 3 or 4, and then it tailed off. But Winfield has really given him a boost from that DH position.
And is taking a little pressure off, like John Olerud and some hitters like that in the lineup. So there is much more balance up and down. As a result, you don't see Joe Carter running as often anymore. He doesn't steal as many bases, because we used to talk about Toronto being a top-loaded team, Alomar, White, and Carter. Now they've got a lot of depth, and they win with a home run.
You saw Plesac warming up in the Milwaukee bullpen. 2 balls and 1 strike with 1 out. Now 3-1 to Henderson. couple of years ago, the most dangerous offensive player in baseball. One out, the bases are clear. And Austin walks him. So Henderson draws his third base on balls of the game, and Rickey has now walked 95 times this season. He has played in 116 games. That is the third walk issued by Austin. And it'll bring up Dave Henderson.
You mentioned the explosiveness of Rickey Henderson. Even though the health of Terry Steinbach, I think, is the key issue for Oakland. It appears that he's okay. There is a guy, despite the inactivity, can take over a short series like he did in '89 and almost carry a ball club with the things that he can do with power and speed.
And with a 5-2 lead, Rickey is a good threat to run here. 48 stolen bases coming into today's action, 5th in the American League. And I think you talk about the base running abilities and the offensive threat of Rickey Henderson, but also you got to look at Rickey and Dave defensively, and especially on artificial turf. The first 2 games being played in Toronto, you got to have healthy outfield,
healthy legs.
1-0 the count to Dave Henderson.
That's the decision that Tony La Russa will have to make by midnight Tuesday night, whether it'll be Dave Henderson or whether he'll go back to Willie Wilson and even Jerry Brown, who's been a big part of this ball club this season, playing center field.
That Willie Wilson is his best defensive center fielder on artificial turf. Jerry Brown can play the position as well if needed.
Wilson, with all the years in Kansas City, which was a roomy outfield they have to cover, very similar to Skydome.
To Oakland. Mike Bordick led off this 4th inning with a home run, and Henderson goes after the fastball upstairs, and the count is 1 ball and 1 strike. So the A's going long ball. They have dropped 8 of their last 10 games. Trying to finish on a high note in this regular season. Henderson doesn't go as the other Henderson, Dave, takes the ball, and it's now 3-1 or 2-1. 2 balls and 1 strike. The A's took the lead for good in the American League West on August the 5th. With several high points for this ball club. Sweep of the Minnesota Twins at the end of July got him into a tie for the lead. 2-1 pitch and a fly ball hit to shallow center field. Yount and Hamilton chasing it, and Hamilton runs in front of Yount to make the catch for the out. Second out of the inning. 2 down, and Rickey Henderson back to first base. Juan Guzman pitching a marvel of a game in Toronto right now as the Blue Jays lead the Tigers 3-0. And Ruben High Sierra has a new Oakland fan club. They had to use that stencil because he joined the club late in the year, so they couldn't really do the artistic job with his sign.
Maybe the only month they get to use it also. I don't know if the A's will sign him back being a free agent.
Well, they didn't want to spend too much money on a sign for short term. Sierra has hit into a force play and walked. He has scored a run and drove in a run when he walked with the bases loaded back in the 2nd inning. Runner at first base and 2 out, pitch out, and Rickey wasn't going anywhere, and it's 1-0.
Premier free agents they continue to talk about: Barry Bonds, Greg Maddux, Kirby Puckett, but better throw Ruben Sierra's name in there also. A lot of teams will be bidding for his services. Switch hitter, power from both sides, plays every day.
Fastball is outside. 2 balls and no strikes. Here are the A's free agents, and some of those of the A's would be in demand.
Some fall into that Class A category where the A's are going to get a high draft pick. When they lose, don't re-sign them.
Fly ball, left field. Foul. Mark Carrion has broken up Juan Guzman's no-hitter with a single in the 6th inning. Blue Jays still lead 3-0, and we're about to point out that Mike Scott, remember, pitched a no-hitter to clinch a division title for the Houston Astros back in 1986. But not to be for Juan Guzman today, but I think he'll settle for a W. Huh? Just a win.
Gaston will settle for a good 6 or 7 solid innings out of him because he has not pitched that well since his time on the disabled list.
Ricky Henderson, the runner at first base. The count is 2-1 with 2 outs to Ruben Sierra. There goes Henderson, and the pitch is popped up into short left field. Vaughn is coming in, and his ball drops. Listash couldn't locate it, and Henderson around the third will hold at third base as Sierra goes into second base. Difficult play all the way around. Listash was running in circles in shallow center field, and Vaughn was too far out to make the catch. And that'll go as a double for Sierra.
High sky, swirling winds. You can see Vaughn playing deep, Yount playing deep, and Listash, who is the most likely candidate to catch the ball, by the time he turns around, can't locate it. So a couple of things going awry today for Milwaukee that are unusual. The control of their pitchers and missing plays like they just did.
Bill Garner is coming out to the mound, and he's going to bring in left-hander Dan Plesac to face the left-handed hitting Harold Baines, as the sand in the hourglass starting to run out a little bit for the Milwaukee Brewers, not only here in Oakland, but of course in Toronto as well. So Dan Plesac will come in as the third pitcher of the game for the Milwaukee Brewers, and Jim and I will take a break as well. Dan Plesac coming in now for the Milwaukee Brewers, making his 44th appearance of the year, and he'll be facing a pinch hitter, so he'll be looking at a right-handed batter. Randy Reddy will bat for Harold Baines in the DH spot.
Randy Reddy.
Not much enthusiasm there as the Brewers, after taking a 1-0 lead in the top of the first inning and then back-to-back home runs, accounted for 3 runs in the bottom of the first inning, and the A's have been in front since then. And threatening with 2 out, runners at second and third, Randy Reddy, the hitter. Fastball, 1-0 the count to Reddy.
Once the premier reliever for the Brewers, Dan Plesac, you could always count on him to save games almost like Dennis Eckersley does now. But tough times a couple of years ago, and now he's become a middle reliever.
And a half-swing roller, Surhoff, and covering first base and making the play is Plesac. Not very pretty, and he almost ran over Randy Reddy, but it was a big play because it prevented any further damage. So after 4 innings, 5-2 in favor of the A's. It is 5-2 as we go to the top of the 5th inning. Eric Fox has replaced Dave Henderson in center field for the A's. And Pat Listash swings and misses on a good fastball by Mike Moore. Listash has been called out on strikes and walked, and was nailed attempting to steal on a fine throw from Terry Steinbach. 0-2 now to Listash.
With the 5-2 lead, you can see Mike Moore kind of air it out on those 2 pitches. Strike 1, strike 2. Working with 3 days rest in preparation for probably game 3. Might see him just try to put a strong inning or 2 together right now, and then that'll be it for the day.
And Listash takes 3 pitches and strikes out for the 2nd time. And right now, let's check in with Pat O'Brien for an update. Pat?
All right, Dick, no hitter for Juan Guzman. He'd like to have this pitch back. Mark Carrion with a single. That ball had a blinking light on it that said, "Hit me." He retired the next 3 batters, so it's 3-0 Toronto. Back to Dick.
His choice ground ball by Dave Winfield. Guzman has only allowed 1 hit. Reliever Mark Leiter in with a first pitch strike to Kelly Gruber.
In the batter. He scored the Brewer run in the first inning. It was safe on a throwing error, wound up at third and came in on a sacrifice fly. Mike Moore looking for his 17th win of the year. He is the leader on the staff right now. He has won 1 more game than Ron Darling. There's a called strike, 1-1. And speaking of Darling, talk about the rough luck he has had. We have seen the last 2 games he has pitched against the Brewers, and could have easily won both of those games.
Talking with Bobby Witt, acquired from the Texas Rangers, and he has been, I think, the A's best starter when you look at the entire season. tough loss to the Brewers in the game we did last weekend, and then last night his own throwing error helped the Brewers score an unearned run, and another good performance and a tough loss for Oakland.
Fastball is outside. Both, if Toronto is the team to win this division, it looks like at this point that they will. Both teams have solid starting pitchers who may not get an opportunity. I mean, you're looking at Todd Stottlemyre, possibly a Jimmy Key if they go with 3 pitches, as Hamilton lines a single to center field. That is the 3rd hit of the ball game off of Mike Moore, and the same thing if you look at Bobby Witt for the Oakland A's.
Well, managers go through that when it comes to postseason arrangements. And you look at your team and say, hey, are we here to reward people for what they've done during the season for sentimental reasons, or you want to wear one of those World Championship rings? And from that standpoint, I think guys like Todd Stottlemyre and maybe Bob Welch, who's not 100%, would say, hey, I'll sit on the bench and watch my guys win and wear one of those World Series rings.
Paul Molitor has walked twice. 1 out and a runner at first. 5-2 the score. Brewers could still play hit and run, though they trail by 3 runs. They've got to get something going to try to get back in this ball game. They have no control over what's happening at Skydome with the Blue Jays in front there. Outfield is playing relatively deep and straight away from Molitor as he takes low.
A little unusual alignment. You can see Eric Fox slightly to pull, and look at all the area in right center because Sierra is right on the line. Why? Because Molitor has that knack of taking an outside pitch and shooting it right down that line.
Throw to first base, but if Molitor were to line one over the head of second baseman Bordick, I mean, he would get 3 bases considering how far those outfielders are away from that spacious outfield, right around with that 375 mark.
This is where the pitching charts tell a team where to play. And they'll show that he either hits the ball right down the line or otherwise he tends to pull it.
And fly ball, and Sierra was playing imperfectly, as you pointed out, makes the catch in foul territory. Hamilton bluffs but goes back to second base. So there are those hitting charts, and they're pretty accurate. Molitor is retired for the 2nd out here in the 5th inning.
Now they use computers, but for years, I can remember Whitey Herzog, as soon as the game was over, he had a number of colored pencils. Each pitcher had their own color. And wherever they hit the ball, for example, off Bruce Sutter, that might be blue. Well, he would chart where every hitter hit the ball, and that's how they're able to, off Mike Moore, say, this is the way Molitor hits him, this is the way we're going to play him.
Rene Latchman looking into the book for some of the scouting information. Robin Yount, the hitter, and we might point out that they're playing Yount practically the same way with Sierra over toward the line in right field. First pitch, outside, ball 1. There is Sierra.
I would think that Robin Yount's chart for the last 19 years, 18 years has been about the same. I mean, his swing has been so consistent and has always been primarily a right center alley type hitter. Seldom pulls the ball.
Ground ball hit to the second baseman Bordick, and that'll do it. There was a hit and 1 left. So in the middle of the 5th inning here at Oakland Coliseum, the A's lead the Brewers 5-2. Mark McGwire leading off for the A's takes ball 1 here in the bottom of the 5th inning. McGwire with his 42nd home run. In the 1st inning, struck out his last time up, takes a big cut. This is 1-1. Powerful Mark McGwire. No longer Canseco and McGwire, though, here in Oakland. That was the big tandem that people talked about for years, Jim.
No more Bash brothers. They still do that forearm bashing, but this is the guy that has supplied most of the power.
And a pop-up to the right side. Glasses down for B.J. Surhoff with plenty of room in foul territory. Nearly got away from him, but he makes the catch for out number 1 in the 5th inning. Well, Jim, a lot of people may not realize we don't work alone when we're up here in the booth. Marty Aronoff, our statistician, and Dawn Mitchell, our stage manager, and so we have some good support up here. But let's talk about Let's talk about the A's and maybe some of the pivotal games, particularly against the Toronto Blue Jays, the team they may be playing.
You know, there were a few times when they about fell out of the American League West. Everybody had said Minnesota's going to walk off with this thing, and even Sparky Anderson told Tony La Russa on that road trip where they went to Cleveland, Detroit, and Toronto, another loss or two, you could be out of it. They went into Toronto, lost the first game of a series, and then came back to win 3.
Lansford may have extra bases as Vaughn chases it into the corner, and Carney Lansford has a double with 1 out here in the 5th inning. That's the 30th double of the season for Carney Lansford. Terry Steinbach is coming up, and of course he's been battling that abdominal injury, and here's what he said about it.
It's coming along real good. It's one of those gray areas that I want to make sure it's ready for the playoffs, but yet in the same time, I'd like to get some at-bats before I go into that first game of the playoffs.
And he's getting a few at-bats. He had a single and scored a run in the 2nd inning. He's 1 for 2 on the day. And an opportunity with a runner in scoring position and 1 out. Lansford with his 30th 2-bagger, and he takes off the 3rd. The pitch is taken for a strike. To throw to 3rd, safe at 3rd is Carney Lansford. Tony La Russa likes to have his base runner steal 3rd. He did it with Ricky Henderson for a couple of years.
Just keeping sharp, the reactions and everything. Plesac with the big leg kick, and Lansford, watch this late slide. I mean, the throw looks like it's there, but it's the late slide and the ability to pop up at the last minute that gets him in just ahead of the tag.
And what that does, with a runner at 3rd base and 1 out, the Brewers have to bring their infield in for Steinbach. The count is 0-1 to him. In the dirt, blocked by Nielsen. So Carney Lansford is successful for the 7th time in 9 tries. Here's a guy who's been nursing an injured elbow that he suffered on a throw to 2nd base trying to get a double play. But here's a guy who's come back from much bigger injuries than that to make a great comeback this season. 5-2, and the A's are rallying again here in the 5th inning. Check swing, and he went around for the strike. 1 ball and 2 strikes to Terry Steinbach.
Lansford's bases are not stolen with speed. Those are base running instincts and a good jump, and that's he timed Dan Plesac's motion to home plate perfectly there.
He has been the clubhouse leader of this ball club, has commanded the respect, and has backed it up. Again in the dirt with a breaking pitch. 2-2 the count to Terry. We're in the bottom of the 5th inning here in Oakland. Ricky Bonas started for the Brewers and was knocked out in the 2nd inning. James Austin walked Ruben Sierra with the bases loaded. At one time, the A's were leading 4-1. Brewers got a run back, and then Oakland with Mike Bordick's leadoff homer last inning, 5-2, and that's where we are. Steinbach gets a piece of it, still 2-2 to him. If the A's had not had Steinbach, if his injuries would have kept him out of the LCS, that would have been about as critical an injury as the A's could have suffered.
Much more so, I think, than missing Ricky Henderson. No disrespect for Ricky, but Steinbach is such a valuable part of his team. You could see it when he threw out Listash a couple innings ago.
2-2 with Lansford with the lead at 3rd. Swings and misses. Out in front of that one, so Steinbach strikes out for out number 2, and the infield can move back as Steinbach mutters to himself.
Used to be the devastating slider. Now it looks like Plesac takes a little off that pitch. Gets Steinbach with a changeup, as you could see him reaching. Finishing with that little windmill. So he was up there just trying to make contact. Any kind of contact, get the ball through the infield, score a run.
2 down, a runner at 3rd, and Mike Bordick, who's 2 for 2. He has singled and homered, his 3rd homer of the year, and that's his major league total for the long ball. Dan Plesac starts him off with a breaking ball low. Bordick has been invaluable, filling in first at shortstop when Walt Weiss was hurt, then moving over to 2nd base. Open stance a la Lansford, and has to hit the deck with that pitch headed for his pins.
It's the inconsistency that Dan Plesac has gone through this year. You see, he is way off target with that slider, and you could depend on him in years past for that pitch to be much more in the strike zone consistently.
2 balls and no strikes. Now 3-0. Number 9 hitter Walt Weiss is waiting to hit for Oakland.
Beautiful. Get him on.
And they're not going to take any chances. 3-0. He might have had the green light, but they walk him intentionally. So Bordick is on, and they'll pitch to Walt Weiss instead. That is the second intentional pass by the Brewers this afternoon.
Well, he's just trying to, you're going to use all the options, wring everything you can out of this team, and the availability of walking a guy like Bordick to get to Weiss, who is not as good a hitter from the right side, to try to keep this a 5-2 game and give the Brewers a chance to come back.
Last night, Phil Garner ordered 4 intentional passes. Runners at the corners with 2 away, and Walt Weiss, the switch hitter who's batting right-handed, where he is a 137 hitter from the right side. He's 0 for 2 today. First 2 times up as a left-handed batter, takes 1-0. Ball 1 from Dan Plesac. Grounded foul, and he may need a new bat, as he was jammed on that pitch from Plesac.
We were talking about the critical stages of the season for the Oakland A's, one being that road trip to Toronto where they lost game 1, came back to win the other 3, and then the same thing happened out here in Oakland. Toronto came out here, and at one time the Blue Jays were like 5-0. I think they're 5-1 against them. So there were 2 or 3 periods of time. Everybody points to that 3-game sweep of the A's, but there were a lot more of the Twins, rather, a lot more times that Oakland had to survive to get in position to win this American League West.
1-1 pitch, breaking ball is in. In fact, Sparky Anderson told Tony La Russa, I really feel for you, because now you have to face Toronto in that last series, when you were when the A's were really hurting, and they didn't want to fall farther back at the All-Star break.
Then they went through Minnesota, Kansas City, and Texas, and went 9-2, and then they came back in early August and took over first for good.
1 ball and 2 strikes with 2 outs. Runners at first and third. Breaking ball is bounced to Listash at short, who'll go to second for the 4th to retire the side. And so the score remains 5-2 in favor of the A's, and we'll return to Oakland Alameda County Coliseum after this word from your local station. Well, no matter what happens this season, it's been a big success for the Milwaukee Brewers. Greg Vaughn thinks so.
We don't have anything to hold our head down about. We gave it our best shot. If we win, terrific, you know, then we move on from there. But if not, we can still be proud, because the so-called baseball experts picked us to finish 4th or 5th.
And Vaughn on the first pitch grounds to Mike Bordick for the first out. That's right, the experts picked the Brewers to be not in contention at all, and Milwaukee has had the best record in the American League in the second half of this year. That's right, better than even the A's, who had to come from behind and win in the West. Since the break, the Brewers are 47-27. Here is B.J. Surhoff, is grounded out twice, looks at a breaking ball high and away, and activity in the Oakland bullpen. Mike Moore getting himself ready for a number 4 starting assignment, perhaps, in the LCS. As the breaking ball taken for a strike, Jeff Parrott, who's been used as an effective setup man for Dennis Eckersley.
Good to see another forkball pitcher when Parrott comes on. I mentioned the unavailability of Jeff Russell, so Parrott, along with Jim Corsi, become big members of that pen.
High chopper that Bordick, going to his right off balance, makes the throw in time. Bordick's been a busy man, including a home run today, so he has contributed mightily to the A's lead. And there are 2 out here in the 6th inning. Oakland Coliseum on a gorgeous afternoon. I tell you, the Bay Area at this time of the year, you can't find a better weather around the country. And how about this shocker? Notre Dame had a 16-0 lead, and Stanford scored 33 points in a row. Bill Walsh was worried about his offense. He had a good defense. He knew that. And a win over the Fighting Irish for Stanford.
A lot of thinking going on in that game, wasn't there? Bill Walsh and Lou Holtz.
A couple of geniuses. They don't call themselves geniuses, but many others do. Kevin Seitzer fouls off the pitch, and the count is 1-1. Seitzer really was hoping to get the goat horns off of his head last night when he let the ball go through his legs that ultimately allowed the A's to score a go-ahead run in the 8th inning, 2-1. So he was about as pleased as anyone that the Brewers came back and won last night.
Done such a good job in the field. Mentioned the Brewers lead the league in defense, but making that error at a critical time last night and having his ball club come back to win, that lifts a little weight off his shoulders.
2 outs and nobody on base. The count is 2-1. Mike Moore pitching what should be his last inning of the game as Seitzer stays alive. Last time up, Kevin was robbed of an RBI single by Mark McGwire, who speared a liner going to his right. Bill Garner, a Manager of the Year candidate. A lot of people think Tony La Russa, with all of the moves he had to make with all of the players injured, should get the award. Chopper to third, backing up is Lansford. Guns it across the diamond just in time to get Seitzer. And a 1-2-3 inning. 3 ground balls, 3 outs for Mike Moore. In the middle of the 6th inning, it's 5-2 A's. Well, the A's haven't been healthy all year, and that includes even at this point. And interested, it's the health of his club. Here's what Tony La Russa told us last night.
It's exactly what we faced all year. We have some legitimate question marks. Terry Steinbeck's abdomen, Jerry Brown, Ricky Henderson, Honeycutt, Russell, Carney Lansford. There are a number of key guys that we're not sure about, but we have an expectation that they'll all be ready.
It'll be interesting to see what he does when the rosters have to be in on Tuesday night. Well, a lot of the players who have been ailing, including Ricky Henderson, in the lineup today.
You know one thing, Ricky can draw a walk. Healthy enough to do that.
One was an intentional pass as he leads off here in the bottom of the 6th inning against Dan Plesac. Like to get that 2,000th hit either today or tomorrow. Not wait till next season. Strike one, 1-1 the count to Ricky Henderson. So they're going to be pleased here in the Bay Area that Stanford from Palo Alto beat Notre Dame. And, up in the upper Midwest, Wisconsin upset Ohio State 20-16 today. Good news for the state of Wisconsin fans at a Big Ten bout. Barry Alvarez is building a solid program for the Badgers out there. 1 ball and 1 strike to the leadoff hitter Ricky Henderson. The A's in front 5-2. 3 runs in the first, a run in the second, and 1 in the fourth. 3 home runs off Oakland bats today. Back-to-back homers by Harold Baines, a 2-run blow, and Mark McGwire in the first, and Mike Bordick's leadoff drive over the left field wall in the 4th inning. Grounder foul down the left field line, and the count is 2-2 to Ricky. Plesac, the 3rd pitcher of the day, strikes out Henderson. That is the 2nd strikeout for Plesac. And there's 1 away in the 6th inning. Well, the best part of the year coming up here on CBS Sports, the championship part, the LCS and then the World Series. But first, the National League gets underway, 8:30 Eastern time. The Pirates and the Braves, the same 2 who battled it out in 7 games last year, 8:30 p.m. Eric Fox in his first at-bat goes after the first pitch and hits a high fly to Greg Vaughn, who makes the catch in left field. Talk about heroes. Eric Fox with the 9th inning home run on July the 29th to help the A's sweep the Twins and move into a tie for first. One of the highlights for this club.
Typical of the A's all season, role players like Fox and Reddy and Jerry Brown. And Fox got an inside fastball that night, hit a dramatic 3-run homer, but the A's also won a big game the night before in what looked like a game would be about 20-19. Everybody was hit
the 12-10 game.
12-10, and Eckersley comes in and zip, 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 6 up, 6 down, and that's what Tony La Russa says really points out the value of a Dennis Eckersley, and that was an equally big game for him.
Here's Ruben Sierra, doubled his last time up, has walked and hit into a force play. He is 1 for 2 officially with an RBI, his 84th of the year, and a run scored. Sierra has been a big plus since coming over from the Texas Rangers. He had to sit out a few games with chicken pox, but is then given what Tony La Russa says many more ways that he feels they can win with Sierra as opposed to Jose Canseco. 2 outs, the bases are empty here in the bottom of the 6th inning. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
You can see him try to paint that outside corner on Sierra. And Gordy Lakey, advanced scout for the Toronto Blue Jays, will be here taking close notice of that. Sierra tends to pull away from the plate a little bit that first stride, so they'll try to keep it out there.
Took something off the breaking ball.
But I think the dimension that he brings when you look at Tom Henke and Dwayne Ward coming in at the end of a ball game from the left side of the plate with Sierra and Baines gives Oakland a little more balance.
Mike Fetters has been throwing in the Brewers bullpen down the right field line. And a slow bounding ball in the 3rd. Seitzer's throw is in time, and a 1-2-3 inning for Dan Plesac. So we've completed 6 innings here at Oakland. The A's lead it 5-2. That's bad news for the Brews.
CBS Sports presents Major League Baseball. Today's game is brought to you by Mr. Goodwrench, your GM service expert. Subway, sandwiches and salads made fresh before your eyes. And by MasterCard, accepted at nearly 10 million places worldwide.
Back here at the Oakland Coliseum with the A's leading the Brewers 5-2, and they are 3 innings away from elimination, or in Toronto winning as well, which would do it that way. Jeff Parrott has come in for the A's, replacing Mike Moore. Parrott has worked 95 innings in relief this year. That leads the staff, and the most he has worked in the last 3 years, making his 66th appearance of the year. Those are his numbers. Has been used as a good setup man for Dennis Eckersley, and a fine 9-1 record for Jeff Parrott. He'll be facing Dave Nielsen, Scott Fletcher in the top of the order, and Pat Listad. Nielsen has walked and singled and driven in one of the 2 Milwaukee runs. First pitch from Jeff Parrott, taken ball 1, and as you mentioned earlier when he was warming up, he too utilizes the forkball.
Pitch of the 80s, that's going to be the pitch of the 1992 postseason play when you look at Oakland and Toronto.
And a soft liner hit the center field, and it may drop in, and it does for Dave Nielsen. He gets his 2nd hit of the ball game. So he has 2 of the 4 hits off Oakland pitching. At the conclusion of today's game, Jim and I will select the Chevrolet Most Valuable Player of the game. Chevrolet will donate $1,000 in the player's behalf to the Special Olympics. The line on Mike Moore, he worked 6 innings, gave up 2 runs, none of them earned. On 3 hits, he walked 4 and struck out 2. And if Parrott and whomever can hold on the lead, Moore will pick up his 17th victory of the year. Here's Scott Fletcher, 0 for 2. Lansford a couple of steps in at 3rd base. Breaking ball is low and away, 1-0.
The other question mark that Tony La Russa has in his bullpen, he had an outing a couple of nights ago. He'd like to see him work maybe some tomorrow. Is Rick Honeycutt. He's got a slight tear in a hip muscle, and that's got to be, you know, the off season. He's got to allow it to heal, but they think he may be able to be healthy enough to just face a hitter or 2 in postseason play.
He's not the only pitcher that Tony wants to take a look at. Popped up to right field, Sierra, who's been hugging that right field line most of the day against the right-handed hitters of the Brewers, again playing in perfect position, makes the catch for out number 1. Jeff Russell, who has not pitched since September the 16th, he has a sore right elbow. He worked 30 minutes yesterday and says he's not 100%, but he is looking to get a couple of innings in tomorrow as well.
They have until Tuesday night, midnight, really, to complete their roster. So still another game plus the remainder of this one for La Russa to look at a number of players like that.
Russell, who was acquired with Sierra and Witt in the Canseco deal with the Texas Rangers. Here's Listash, takes a fastball for a strike. He struck out twice. Took a called 3rd strike on 2 occasions and walked once today. And the count is 1-1.
So this score holds up, and the Toronto score, and they do go ahead and win. That's what will make the American League Championship Series quite different from the National League. It'll be primarily a 6 to 7 inning game. You don't score your runs in the first 6 or so. With these 2 bullpens, it's pretty tough the last 3.
Good fastball, and Listach misses it, and it's 1-2. And of course, you know what happens in postseason play. All of a sudden, you know, we have new heroes, different heroes who didn't produce during the regular season necessarily, and things that you don't expect happen will happen. Maybe the bullpens, you know, highly heralded going in won't be as effective, but going in, that's the way the scenario looks. Missing outside 2-2.
It's what happened last year. We talked about Toronto's bullpen, and they always have had a good one, but Minnesota's bullpen outpitched them last year in the American League Championship Series. So even though you can rate the personnel and stack it up, it's still who's going to perform under those circumstances that will tell you who the winner is.
And Listach strikes out for the 3rd time, and there are 2 gone.
First year he has switch hit. Obviously his first year in the big leagues. He just began to bat from the left-hand side of the plate a little over a year ago. And so with a high strikeout total, Pat Listach still a little more difficulty in making contact from the left side.
124 times Listach has struck out this year. So there are 2 gone, and Darrell Hamilton has one of the 4 Brewer hits today. Time is running out on this Milwaukee Dream, but they have won the hearts of so many people with the way they have challenged the Toronto Blue Jays. They moved ahead of the Orioles, don't forget, and a big part of it, Robin Yount, who made the great catch last night to save the division, at least for another day. And an exciting brand of ball as well. The running game, the hit and run, the steal, when you don't expect it. Outstanding starting pitching and a great spirit. And Phil Garner, in his first year as manager, Basio, who along with Eldred, the stalwarts on the pitching staff down the stretch for Milwaukee. 1-2 the count to Hamilton.
The talk all around the American League is that the key word is how much fun it is to watch that team play. Because they do, you know, they don't bop you around with a long ball or wait back like Earl Weaver's teams used to do with a 3-round homer, but they ping it here, ping it there, run the bases, play well in the field.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Low, 2-2, but given his druthers, I'm sure that Phil Garner would not mind having a couple of hitters with pop into the lineup next year. It's okay to play like this, but as he mentioned, when you fall behind early and are trailing in the late innings, you can't play the same way.
Good example right here. Nothing like a 2-run homer to get the Brewers back in this ball game.
Runner at first is Nielsen. He led off with a base hit, and there he goes on the pitch. Line to center field. Eric Fox has to go way back, and this one is caught. Basket catch style for Eric Fox on the warning track. He was playing shallow, and Hamilton gave it a ride, but Fox makes the play. There was a hit and 1 left. We're in the middle of the 7th inning with the A's in front 5-2. Even Dennis Eckersley says that the Cy Young Award winner should go to a starting pitcher, and there you're looking at rankings of 5 possible candidates. Jack McDowell, a 20-game winner. Roger Clemens kind of tailed off as of late. What about those rankings, and what's your opinion, Jim Cott?
Yeah, lest anyone think they come out of some computerized league office or anything like that. Those are just some rankings that I have. If you finish first in a category, you get a 1. If you finish last, you get about a 64. But when you analyze average innings per start, average walks per start, complete games, quality starts, all of those things, throw it into a barrel and spin it around. Roger Clemens is still the most effective pitcher rather, in the American League. He may have trouble winning it because he doesn't have 20 wins.
In the National League, we'll show you that one. Randy Reddy, who pinch hit for Harold Baines as the DH and bounced out. There you see Greg Maddux. Any argument there? I doubt it for Maddux.
I don't think so. There's not a category in the National League. Out of 10 separate categories, Greg Maddux is first in 7 of them. So if there's a lock for that award in the National League, it's him. The American League's still a little up for grabs.
New pitcher is Mike Fetters for the Milwaukee Brewers. He is the 4th pitcher of the day for the Brews. And Reddy fouls it off, and the count remains 1 ball and 2 strikes. Ricky Bonas worked an inning and a third. Austin, 2 1/3 innings. Plesac pitched pretty well in his short stint, giving up only 1 hit, 2 1/3 innings. And now Fetters. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Michael Lee Fetters lives in Hawaii, was born in Van Nuys, California, and that was the birthplace of another pitcher that we know about, great right-hander Don Drysdale was from Van Nuys.
The snapper, they called him in L.A.
3-2 pitch, and a pop-up in foul territory. Chasing it is Seitzer. He's under it, and Reddy is out. They're in the bottom of the 8th inning in Toronto with the Blue Jays leading the Tigers 3-0, and we will send you to Skydome when the Detroit Tigers come up in the top of the 9th inning. Sean McDonough and Tim McCarver at Skydome, and the way this game is going and the way that game is going, the Blue Jays will be poised to clinch it themselves by winning, and that's always a great thing to see a team, if they can, win it on the field, not have to wait for another result to come in.
Whether it's on the college level or the professional level, all players look at that victory celebration, the pile on, the jump on, whatever you want to call it. Listen, I want to be a part of that. Nothing like it.
Mark McGwire with the count, 2 balls and no strikes. What's the biggest celebration that you were ever part of, and where were you during it?
I would say it was the '82 Cardinals World Championship year against these Milwaukee Brewers, but there were some the first year in Minnesota that they ever won anything, 65, a part of that, and then the Phillies, who after that 64 collapse did not win anything till the 76 years. I was privileged to be a part of a lot of good ball clubs like that.
McGwire walks with 1 out in the 7th inning. McGwire hit his 42nd home run of the year, and so it'll be a lot of interest going into the final day of the regular season tomorrow with Juan Gonzalez and Mark McGwire at this point with 42 home runs, leading the American League. And McGwire sat out for 20 games with a rib cage injury and did not play the other night when he saw Gonzalez play and hit his 42nd.
What I'm sure Mark is going to be careful not to do tomorrow if he gets a crack to win that title is to not try to come out of your shoes and leave the ball yard and injure that rib again. Be on the shelf for postseason play.
Carney Lansford lines it to left field. Vaughn is back, makes the catch on the warning track, and McGwire will hustle back to first base. On those celebrations, the Minnesota Twins, of course, that was the first. The first time you were with a winner. Where were you? Were you jumping? Were you kind of goofy, jumping around the players, or did you keep your cool and stay in the background?
The first time I'd never done it, and I was lucky that I was on the mound against the old Washington Senators pitch that day, so I had everybody running out there. But yeah, I think one of the things, you don't want to spike one of your teammates, but it's a spontaneous reaction where there's nothing like it to have gone through 160-some games and enjoy that. But you come from all parts, the bench, the bullpen, outfield, and you congregate around the mound and say, hey, we did it. Then you come to reality and say, wait a minute, we got another game in a couple days.
Few of them anyway. Terry Steinbach getting a chance to play and hit, as he does there, a solid line drive to center field. That's his 2nd hit of the ball game. So runners at first and second as McGwire goes to second base.
If he's concerned about being sharp for the American League Championship Series, Terry Steinbach, he need worry not anymore. He has had some great at-bats, thrown out a runner, and has been careful to just kind of trot down to first base and not injure that abdomen.
Don Rowe out to the mound, and we will have a pinch hitter for Mike Bordick. Let's check this day in baseball history, October 3rd. I bet it's 1951, just a hunch.
I think so.
Second, but he'll be running out the window. Thompson hits 1. Backer throws. There's a left field. I believe. The Giants won the pennant. 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 Bobby Thompson hits into the very bench of the left field stand. The Giants won the pennant, and they're going crazy. They're going crazy.
Easily the most dramatic moment in baseball history, coming from 13 and a half back in August. The Giants beat the hated Dodgers on Bobby Thompson's home run. Giants had trailed 4-1 going into the bottom of the 9th inning. in one of the greats. Troy Neal is batting for Mike Bordick with runners at first and second and 2 out. Troy Neal up for the 3rd time with Oakland this year. And a drive to left field over the head of Vaughn and off the wall. Maybe extra bases. McGuire will score, and going to third is Steinbach. In at second with a double is the pinch hitter Troy Neal, and the A's now lead it by a score of 6-2.
Went to Texas A&M, presumably to play football. Never did play there, but you can see the strength and power of a football player. And some feel Troy Neal may be the designated hitter in Oakland next year in place of Harold Baines.
Pinch hit RBI double, and the Brewers looking at the scoreboard. They know that Toronto leads Detroit 3-0. Could be a double whammy for them today. They just needed one, the magic number 1 for the Blue Jays. And Walt Weiss, base hit. No, it's stopped by Fletcher. The throw to first, safe at first base. The run will score. Steinbach crosses the plate with the 7th run of the ball game. And it is 7-2. Great try by Fletcher, but the Brewer dugout tells the story here.
Saves 1 run with this nice diving stop, Scott Fletcher, but all the positive signs that Tony La Russa was looking for. Good at-bats by Steinbach, home run from McGuire, Walt Weiss from the left side. Good performance by Moore, so no doubt about this team being ready to go in Wednesday's action.
7-2 the score. 2 runs in off of Mike Fetters, who's given up 3 hits. 3 successive hits here in the 7th inning. Ricky Henderson, the batter, takes a strike. He's 0 for 1 with 3 walks today. He struck out his last time up. So the numbers don't lie, and the Brewers' dream is coming to an end on this next to last day of the season. Trailing here to the A's 7-2, while the Blue Jays are leading 3-0 against the Tigers, and a looping fly ball is caught by Fletcher to retire the side finally. But the A's get 2 runs as we go to the 8th inning. It's 7-2.
We welcome those of you who've been watching the ball game between Oakland and Milwaukee to the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, where the Blue Jays are on the verge of the American League East title. They bring a 3-0 lead in the top of the 9th inning. After 8 brilliant innings from Juan Guzman, who allowed just 1 hit, Tom Henke has come on to close it out. He saved last night's win over the Tigers that reduced the magic number to 1. Lou Whitaker leads off for Detroit. He's 0 for 3 this afternoon. Fryman and Fielder scheduled to follow Henke's first pitch, a ball high and tight. Who have just joined us, we will be sending you back to the conclusion of that game between Oakland and Milwaukee as soon as we're finished here. Tim McCarver has made his way toward the Blue Jay dressing room in the event that they do wrap it up here in the 9th inning, and certainly they're ready to celebrate. We'll hear from the victorious Blue Jays. A 1-1 pitch. 2 balls and a strike. Guzman pitched 8 innings, allowed just 1 hit, a 6th inning single to Mark Carrion. He walked 3 and struck out 9. All 9 strikeouts in the first 5 innings. Dave Winfield on his 41st birthday, on the verge of returning to the postseason. The 2-2 pitch. Tapped down to first. Olerud will play it himself, 1 out. The big blow in this ball game, the first inning home run by Joe Carter. He had a 2-run shot with Devon White aboard. Cito Gaston watched Juan Guzman do the rest. Gaston trying to become only the 6th manager. The guide his team to first place finishes in 3 of his first 4 years at the helm. Hankey ahead of Travis Fryman. 1 strike. Guzman still in the dugout. Fryman 0 for 3 today. Well hit. White on the run. Can't get it. So the Tigers have a 1-out base runner in the 9th inning. And just their 2nd hit of the ball game. Travis Fryman with a single to left center. That puts the tying run in the on-deck circle and has some of those Blue Jays who were standing sitting down now in the Toronto dugout as Cecil Fielder digs in. Cecil 0 for 2 with a walk. Mickey Tettleton represents the tying run on deck. Fielder singled off Hankey in the 9th inning last night. And it was the forkball that did the damage for Hankey in the 9th inning of last night's game when he faced Mickey Tettleton to end it. Nothing Toronto. With 1 out of the top of the 9th. Fielder up with a count of 0-1. Travis Fryman at first. Borderline strike outside corner of the knee. The 0-2 pitch. Check swing and a ball low and away. Now the 1-2. Base hit, and the tying run will come to the plate. Tettleton with another shot at Tom Hankey. Tettleton struck out ending last night's game as he represented the go-ahead run at the plate. The final last night was 8-7 Toronto. There's a pinch runner for Fielder down at first base. Skeeter Barnes on to run. Tettleton today 0 for 2 with a walk. He has hit 2 home runs in his career against Tom Hankey. He is 4 for 16 lifetime against Hankey, including 2 round trippers. Game that Hankey saved for Jack Morris. Hankey said, that was more pressure than I care to be under. Well, there's even more pressure here today. The Blue Jays win this ball game. They have won the American League East title outright in 1992. They lead 3-0 with 1 out of the top of the 9th. 2 men on, and a count of 1-1 now on Mickey Tettleton. a strike. And a count of 1-2. Rob Deere waits on deck. A 1-2 pitch. Just low. Hanke got Tettleton with just that type of pitch last night. Low and out of the strike zone, and Tettleton chased it for the final out of the ball game. Fryman at second, the pinch runner Barnes at first. Now the 2-2 pitch. It gets away from Borders, and the runners advance. And that eliminates the possibility of the ground ball double play to get them out of the inning and wrap up the ball game. That was a ball that should have been handled by Pat Borders. It was out of the strike zone, but clearly a pass ball. And it has been scored, a pass ball. So 2 men in scoring position. And Tettleton has worked the count full. Payoff pitch. Ball 4. That puts the tying run on base. And brings the go-ahead run to the plate. And another long ball threat up there in Rob Deere, who's 0 for 3 today with 2 strikeouts and a fly ball to left. Action now in the Toronto bullpen. Dwayne Ward has started throwing. Ordinarily, Ward sets the table for Hanke, as he did last night. Well, with Hanke struggling here in the ninth, Ward is getting ready. With Toronto leading 3-0. A win, and they're the champs of the AL East. But the Tigers have loaded the bases with 1 out. Great stop by Borders. Travis Fryman is the lead runner. He's at third. The pinch runner, Skeeter Barnes, at second. He's running for fielder. He's at second, and Tettleton is at first. For Rob Deere, and Rob will wait as pitching coach Galen Cisco goes to the mound. Against Hanke, Rob Deere is 3 for 13 lifetime, including a home run. Oakland still leading Milwaukee 7-2. Right now, there isn't a person in this ballpark wearing a Blue Jay uniform or cheering for the Blue Jays who is concerned about that score. They want to win it on their own and celebrate here at the Skydome. Although as the situation tightens, it has to be a relief to the Blue Jays and their followers to look up at the scoreboard and see that score. And a strike on Deere. Scott Livingstone on deck. 1 out, bases loaded, 9th inning, 3-0 Toronto, and that's ball 3. Now Borders out to the mound. Tough to give in to this man with a count of 3-1. One mistake, and suddenly you're behind. He has to throw a strike. He did, and it's popped up. Not very deep. Alomar under it. 2 outs. The Toronto Blue Jays are 1 out away from the American League East title in 1992. And of much less significance, Juan Guzman 1 out away from his 16th win. Scott Livingstone 0 for 3 today. If you're thinking about the long ball, only 4 home runs this year for Livingstone in 354 at bats. A ball outside. This is the first career at bat for Scott Livingstone against Tom Henke. He's a .500 hitter this year with the bases full. As they are now with 2 outs in the ninth, 3-0 Toronto. And Henke has fallen behind Livingstone 2-0. Will be his last year as a member of the Blue Jays. Just a spectator now. He's on the disabled list. For Guzman, it would be a career high save number 35 for Henke, and probably the most excruciating of his professional career. Guzman breezed to the first 8, having allowed just 1 hit. But he's still working his way back from injury. He has thrown more than 110 pitches. Decision was made to give the ball to Henke. But he has struggled for the first time in a long time in the ninth here today, including a bases-loaded walk that forces in the first Detroit run of the ball game and moves the tying run into scoring position. And Henke will not be around to pick up his career-high 35th save. With Dan Gladden due up, Cito Gaston on his way to the mound to summon Dwayne Ward. The RBI for Scott Livingstone, his 46th. It forced in Travis Fryman. And the new pitcher will be Dwayne Ward when we come back to Toronto. In Toronto, where the Blue Jays are still 1 out away from their 4th American League East crown. They're sweating it out here in the ninth. Dwayne Ward has been summoned to come to the rescue of Tom Henke. Henke pitched 2/3 of an inning and could not close out the Tigers. So Ward comes on looking for his 12th save. 3 of his 11 saves this year have come against Detroit. He's 3 for 3 this year in save situations against the Tigers. He's been busy of late. He's now worked in 8 of the last 10 games. One run in for Detroit here in the ninth, and the bases are loaded. With 2 outs for Dan Gladden. 3-1 Toronto. Gladden is 0 for 3 today. Breaking ball for strike 1. Scott Brocious hit the 4th Oakland home run of the afternoon, a 3-run homer. The Athletics lead Milwaukee now 10-2. With not quite as dramatic a moment here as the Blue Jays and their fans think it is. They're not sure we're watching at the moment. And it won't matter. There's a pop-up. Oh, the road is under it. And the Toronto Blue Jays are the American League East champions in 1992.
so the celebration will continue at Sky Dome as Toronto wins its 3rd division title in the last 4 years. They will now meet Oakland beginning next Wednesday here on CBS in the American League Championship Series. We're going to send you back out to Oakland, where Oakland leads 10-2 now in the top of the 9th. After this, stay with us.
Game Summary is sponsored by Budweiser.
Left you for that exciting Toronto division clinching at home, and the celebration continues at Sky Dome. Scott Brocious hit a 3-run homer in the 8th inning off Mike Fetters, and so the score now is 10-2. They had the final score posted here with Toronto beating Detroit 3-1 to finally eliminate the game and gritty Milwaukee Brewers, and their reaction with Paul Molitor right in the middle of their dugout, Jim.
Nevertheless, an exciting year, and as Paul Molitor said, they knew it was a long shot. They wanted to play out the string, make Toronto earn it, and they did. Came up a little short.
All right, so it's the 9th inning here with the A's comfortably in front 10-2. It doesn't matter. The Blue Jays are the division champions. Kelly Downs is the new pitcher. Kevin Seitzer, the batter, he takes inside for a ball. So Downs, it becomes the 4th pitcher. Vince Forsman had worked Parrott after Moore, and Moore stands to win his 17th game of the year. And the A's have made many defensive changes as well, which we'll tell you about. Willie Wilson is the new center fielder. Eric Fox moved from center to left field, replacing Ricky Henderson. And a ground ball fair down the left field line. Extra bases for Seitzer. Hustling in at second base, and he's there with a stand-up double to lead off the 9th inning. And the new catcher is Henry Mercedes. And Mercedes pinch hit for Steinbach in the bottom of the 8th inning. So right now the infield for the A's, McGuire is at first. Lance Blankenship went into play second. Walt Weiss is at short. Scott Brocious at third. The outfield left to right, Eric Fox, Willie Wilson, and Ruben Sierra, with Henry Mercedes the catcher and Kelly Downs the pitcher.
You know, looking at that Toronto game, Dick, even though Hinkie faltered in the 9th inning, their bullpen you still consider rather solid. And the big story in that game is the return of Juan Guzman to form. Boy, does that give him a good 1-2 punch to open the ALCS.
Here's Dave Nielsen, who has 2 hits and a walk today, and his pitch is fouled. And I guess the Toronto Brain Trust knew what they were doing when they moved Guzman into the starting position today ahead of David Cone. Most people thought Cone would be the number 2 pitcher on Thursday night, but Guzman, and he backed up their views today.
Well, it was a win-win situation for them, because if Guzman had not pitched effectively, they still could have tuned Cone up to pitch game 2. Guzman will be coming back in the normal 5th day, but I'm sure his performance today had a little bearing on that.
Ground ball to Lance Blankenship. He'll make the play to first base for the first out. Seitzer goes to third. So we congratulate the Toronto Blue Jays on capturing the American League East title. They didn't make it that easy on themselves in that 9th inning, did they?
Typical for Toronto. Nothing seems to come easy up there, and I doubt that their series with the A's, even though I think they will be favored by most people that follow the game because of the depth and their personnel and the injuries that the A's have had. Toronto will be favored, but they're still going to have quite a series on their hands, I think, with this team.
Well, you got to give a lot of credit to the Blue Jays. We've been crediting these other teams that have come close and nearly won, and the Blue Jays matched Milwaukee's late season success. There was no late season faltering by Toronto this year. They handled all comers, and their appearance in postseason is almost a ritual now, as they're going back again for the 2nd straight year. Jose Valentin is making his first major league at-bat right here, batting for Scott Fletcher. And he lifts a line drive right at Willie Wilson, who makes the catch for out number 2. 2 down here in the top of the 9th inning. And we want to remind you that tonight on CBS at 8 o'clock Eastern, it's Franny's turn, followed by Brooklyn Bridge, Raven, and Angel Street. That's all coming up tonight on CBS. And a run scored as a result of that line drive by Valentin. Seitzer coming across, so the score now is 10-3 with 2 out, and an RBI for Valentin in his first major league at-bat. And we'll have a pinch hitter. Bill Spires will bat for Pat Listash with 2 out in the 9th inning. And how ironic this is, huh? Spires batting for Listash after what the fine rookie did when he got hurt before the year.
Because of Spires' back surgery and coming back a little slower than they thought, Listach got his chance. In fact, next year, talking with Spires before the game, he feels he'll be given a chance to play second base because Listach has proven that he is the shortstop they want, so he could still be back in the lineup next year.
Kelly Downs trying to wrap it up here in the 9th inning. 10-3 the score, and the Oakland A's will end a 6-game losing streak against Oakland. There is Listach, who then hopes Rookie of the Year honors might come his way during the offseason. Foul ball out of play, and the A's hope to finish off on a high note prior to their series with the Toronto Blue Jays, which will get underway Wednesday night. Jack Morris, I'm sure, will be starting for Toronto. Nothing has been announced officially, but look for Dave Stewart to have those honors and what should be a pretty interesting matchup of veteran right-handers.
Great starting pitching matchups in that entire series.
Fastball, strike 3, and the ball game is over, and the Oakland A's finally have beaten the Milwaukee Brewers, the only team that captured the season series from them. Kelly Downs strikes out Bill Spires, and the final score is 10-3. 4 home runs for the A's today, and Tony La Russa had a chance to see a lot of his walking wounded play, and many of them, I would think, passed with flying colors. So the American League Championship Series schedule is set. First 2 games in Toronto, Wednesday and Thursday nights. Then after a travel day, games 3 and 4 here in Oakland on Saturday and Sunday. And that is the story. So we've wrapped up the only division that was hanging in the balance.